Well, that's an abrupt stop, isn't it? Hi, welcome everybody. It's Paul English Live. It's Thursday, the 6th of June, 2024. This is Paul English Live. We're here with you for the next couple of hours. Let's have a bit of chat. This week lasted 10 minutes for me. Don't know how long it lasted for you. And we're going to be doing a bit of D-Day chat here, and we're going to be looking at how marvellous Europe is now, some 80 years after that massive event. And to some degree, this is a follow-on from a little thing I did with Eric von Essex on a Sunday, just gone. And we've got some other little events unfolding. I've tried not to watch any of the party political gas bags, but I just can't resist. It's the best comedy show in town. Just getting my broadcast trousers on properly. I hope you've got yours fitted nice and tightly. Yeah. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. As I said, these weeks go quicker and quicker and quicker. And one little observation I made, I obviously picked the right day, Thursday, for doing the show. Actually, that's not true. I didn't get to pick. This was just something that it was forced upon me by the hand of fate, thankfully, which was great, to bring me here to WBN 324. So this is to all the listeners out there on WBN. Good to be with you again, as we are every Thursday, 3 p.m. US Eastern Time and 8 p.m. here in the UK. And why did I say that Thursday was a good day for this? Well, today is a Thursday, obviously, and it is the 6th of June, and it is the 80th anniversary today of the D-Day event, which we will be talking about really through, I guess, not the direct lens of all the military activity on that day, although we're probably going to touch upon that to some degree, but really the results of that. I touch upon this regularly throughout shows, and I think it's relevant to keep on doing so, because many of you, I suppose, will be thinking down a similar line, if not an exact line, which is that we've lived in the shadow of that conflict ever since it supposedly ended. And of course, it was replaced with another one, which took a long time for people to detect. But it is true that's kind of what's happened. So this Thursday, we've got this event. It also turns out, fortuitously, or maybe not, that in 4 weeks' time, that's another 4 shows after this one. So we've got the 13th, the 20th, the 27th. We've got the 4th of July. So the 4th of July also happens to be a Thursday. So I don't know whether I should think that I'm a wizard for getting all this organised, but probably not. But as you may be aware, the 4th of July is quite an important date. It's important in American history because, well, because they stuck it to us and we lost everything and it was terrible. And of course, that's not true either. But of course, in 1776, on the 4th of July, a big event occurred, which has been memorialised correctly ever since. and is also a link into much of the abominable history that we're taught about things. Nothing is as straight as your history teacher would have had you believe back then. But it's also over here, and I mentioned this last week, the date that they have blithely picked for the UK general election. They do these things every now and again. And of course, in the US, you've got one coming up a little bit later this year on November the 5th. And there's an interesting story behind that as well. So these Thursdays over the next month are really a lead up to this magnificent event here in the United Kingdom where people go out and put marks on pieces of paper, and apparently everything's going to improve. And if you listen to the politicians, and I wouldn't advise that you do that for more than, say, 10 seconds at a time, if you listen to them, they will convince you that everything's going to be improved massively. And of course, those of us who are seasoned old dogs, and I suppose I'm getting close to becoming one, have heard this all before, and we're going to hear it all again if we keep listening to it, and it won't make an ounce of difference. I was using very gentle language when I said that. It won't make any difference whatsoever. One other thing about November the 5th, the day of the US election. I just thought that they'd plucked it out of a hat and said, oh, we'll have November the 5th. Not so. I was wrong about that. It turns out that it's always held, I believe, and maybe some American types might call in here. In fact, we've got one hanging around. Paul B's lurking in the background, which is great. And I'll bring him and a good keen guest on shortly. But it turns out that the election in America is held, I believe, on the first Thursday of November every 4 years. So this would be the first Thursday. It just happens to be the 4th of July. So I guess maybe, if I might have got that wrong, that would mean that generally there would be quite a few elections on the 4th of July, but then they're only every 4 years, then there's a leap year. Yeah, it could get very confusing, couldn't it? But it is quite a little Bobby Dazzler, is that. The 4th of July here in the UK for our election, the 5th of November in the States for your election. And by way of reminder, the 5th of November is known over here notoriously for a gentleman called Guido Fawkes, more commonly pronounced Guy Fawkes, a Yorkshire lad, came from Yorkshire, my home county, and who tried unsuccessfully to blow the Houses of Parliament to kingdom come. It would have been a devastating event had it happened. Maybe some people think it's a devastating event that it didn't happen. I don't want to be so cruel as to think that blowing politicians up is a good way to resolve things. But Fawkes was a member of a crew, a gang, the Gunpowder Plotters. They all came to terrible grief. Fawkes was actually due to be hung, drawn and quartered. They did that sort of thing back in the day. People got very, very cross and really let you know how cross they were by hanging you, then pulling you down whilst you were still semi-conscious, and then cutting you into 4 pieces. Fawkes escaped that fate because when he was on the gallows, he jumped off and broke his neck, and so killed himself before they could even do all that. But they didn't let that put them off. No, they still hung him, even though he was dead. Then they took him down, and then they quartered him up. You can't, I guess some guy was getting paid a fee to do that, so he had to do it. So there we go. So we just started off with a little bit of history on both sides. So aren't we in, us British types and you American types, for a roller coaster ride of fun, not to mention war looming on the horizons and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, let me just bring Paul in. Paul, are you there, lurking in the studio somewhere?
Of course I am.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Where else would I be?
I know. It's great to have you here. I mean, it's funny. We've normally talked, haven't we, during the week, but the last couple of weeks, I've just not been talking to anybody. I just get to meet you on a Thursday so we can have a quick catch-up about things. Yeah, so there we go. I just thought I would let you all know that, you know, about that with those dates. I thought that was quite relatively interesting. It doesn't happen all the time. In fact, as far as I'm aware, it's never happened before. So you must be quite keen and giddy about voting in November. I bet you're very excited about that, aren't you?
Oh, no, I'm not going to vote at all. I'm not going to vote at all because if voting mattered, they wouldn't let you do it.
Oh, that old chestnut. I don't know. Yeah, no, unfortunately, I tend to agree with you, but I've got to take an opposite position. Otherwise, we'd have a really boring conversation, wouldn't we? It would be really quite dull.
But this would be true.
It would. And waiting in the wings, I'm going to bring him on now. He should have been catching all of this if I've joined all my wires correctly, is Eric. Eric, I've just unmuted you. Are you hearing us loud and clear? And if you are, welcome to the show. Hello. Is that chirpy voice? How are you?
Hello, yes. I mustn't grumble. How are you? I could grumble if you've got 3 hours to spare.
Yeah. Well, you could, yeah. Well, we actually do have 3 hours to spare if you like. I mean, I don't know whether we could all cope with 3 hours of your grumbling. I mean, it could be quite inventive and interesting, but I wasn't really banking on that. I mean, it all depends. I mean, if you're in a terrible mood about things, I guess you're going to do it, really. But no, welcome in. Have we ever done this before? I know you've called in when I've been running a show, and I've seen some of your alarming remarks in the Rumble chat. And things like that, and we brought you in. But I don't know if have we actually had you on here as a sort of, bona fide guest in a proper studio and all that kind of stuff. Have we done that before?
No, never done that before. I'm a bona fide guest virgin, so there we are. It's my first time.
I don't know whether I'm going to regret this, but I'm beginning to think I might. This is great. This is really good.
You know me. I'm very miserable, aren't I?
You are, yeah. You're absolutely dour and dull and all that kind of stuff. No, it's good to have you here. I'm just trying to clean your sound. You're quite loud, which I quite like actually, which gives me an opportunity to turn you down a little bit. I think everything's coming through loud and clear. Big shout out to everybody over in the Rumble chat. Great to see you. Good sized audience to kick off with, which is always good. I'll be keeping an eagle eye on that. So no naughty words. No, you can do whatever you like. Really, there some people do, but some cracking little comments always come through. So that's really good. Now, and I'll just say here, I'll just throw this out because Paul, this will get you busy in the background if you want to. Paul, this is from Fran Chan. Hi, Fran Chan. Paul, to me personally, it might be to you, Paul. Actually, let's say it's to both of us. Any chance of playing some Rai Kuda? Like Get Rhythm. Thanks. Oh, yeah, Raikuda. Maybe we could dig some of that up. Yeah. The one I want. Oh, the one I wanted is. Oh, never mind. If it's that one, it's that one. There's one called a UFO has landed in the ghetto, which is absolutely bizarre. I don't know if you ever heard that one. It's really great. That's absolutely completely wacky song. The one I got his album called Bop Till You Drop. Don't know if you remember that. Bop Till You Drop. Pink cover, quite lurid. Came out about 1979, 1980. By golly, I'm showing my age now. And it was one of the first albums that was fully digitally produced in the studio. So the sound quality on it was astonishing. Not that sound quality on records in the 70s was bad. Much of it was brilliant anyway. But it was really, it was that next step up in technical production of songs. And I'm trying to think of one song on there that I really like. I'll do it whilst you two get talking at some point. I'll dig it up, Paul. But it doesn't have to be beanery. It doesn't have to be beanard. And if you're just tuning in for the first time and are wondering what I'm banging on about, Paul Beener here takes hold of songs. And if you want a song playing, you're going to have to get in the Rumble chat. And if you want to get in the Rumble chat, you're going to have to go to paulenglishlive.com and then you click the Rumble link and, you get the hang of it. You can use the internet, you lot, surely. I'm sure you can. So you can come in there and do that kind of stuff. And then Paul drags the records off through some sort of audio hell and brings them back in 432 hertz. And then we all dance and have a wonderful time, don't we? So anyway, I've got completely distracted by that. But yeah, Rai Kuda. Now, back to the matters of the day and the matters of the hour, Eric. Eric, you kindly invited me on to a secret show of yours on Sunday, which I really enjoyed. I'm sorry I could only be there for an hour and a half, but you know why. And it was a little bit longer than I expected. But we were touching upon your personal connection, certainly through your father, with regards to D-Day. And I think it might be good that people here might not have heard that show. And I'll put a link to these shows if I can get my finger out and get sorted out after this show today. But it might be good, Eric, to just recap a little bit about your father's book. I'd like to start there because I only became aware of it properly within the last 24 hours. I think you've messaged me about it before, but you know what it's like. You get tons of things through your mind space and you don't act on them. But I was taking a look at it today, and I'd like to know a little bit more about that because that's quite a hefty tome that he put together, isn't it?
Yes. Well, it took him 10 years to complete, and we called it War and Peace. It's called My World War Two, because he's one of, well, very few survivors. There was basically a handful of survivors who went through the entire siege of Malta, was first one in on the invasion of Sicily, first one in on the invasion of Italy, and the first one in on D-Day, Jig section of Gold Beach, adjacent to where the fiction film, I hasten to add, Saving Private Ryan is depicted,
Right.
because it's based on truth, but it's not it's a sort of a woolly true story sort of thing. Um, but when we showed my father Saving Private Ryan, which incidentally was actually filmed just up the road from where I live in Hatfield,
Right.
we had to turn it off because he said, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And he said, whoever advised Spielberg wasn't there. And this is the problem, is that we've got this, shall we say, view that is full of, I'll be right blunt, blow-vying excrement. I'm being polite there. And the propaganda that they put out during the war is still believed today. And people go by that propaganda. So when they think of a veteran, they think of someone with their medals and all the roses, all the regalia. Well, my father never wore his medals. He never belonged to any veterans associations because he was disgusted with them, basically. And I'm not saying all, but a fair number of those veterans, they're mainly all dead now, never saw any action. And they wallowed in it. And they wallowed in this sort of, oh, isn't it lovely to march along the road and have people glorify it. But the real genuine veterans who had a gut full of militarism and a gut full of the war didn't want anything to do with it. And when they spoke, they were generally ignored. And it's a bit like those of us that, shall we say, at the beginning of lockdown were questioning this, what went on. We were in the minority. We were pushed to the side whilst everybody is queuing up to get their armful of toxic brew. Now, this is the thing. So before my dad died, I said, look, it's not a campaign as such. I said, I will continue on, Dad, to give people the truth. And this book wasn't written for profit or money or anything like that. It was to get the truth over. Because once people understand that truth and give a different viewpoint away from the mass controlled media, their bottom jaw will drop and they'll go, oh my God, I've been lied to all these years. Because there was so much history that's been swept under the carpet because it's inconvenient. And that's basically it.
When did he begin the task of writing it and putting it down? Or was it something that he'd been doing sort of on and off in notes and things for years, and then he thought, I better compile all this? Or did he sit down and go, right, here we go? Because that's, you see, 700 and odd pages is a huge thing. How long did it take him to put it all together then?
Well, it was 10 years, over 10 years. But it started off, we did have relatives in America in the early 90s. They wanted to know what happened to him during the war. So he made a load of cassette tapes. Mm-hmm. And I've actually still got it audio tapes, so it could be an audio book, although it's of the old cassettes.
Yeah.
And then he thought, well, I'll write a book.
Yeah.
And he started, and I had an old Amstrad computer, because remember, that was before the days of the internet, and we're talking about when was it now? No, it was early 90s, and he finished it in 1999, 2000. So he started it in the late 80s, basically. Right. And unfortunately, that was a story in its own, because my mother, my sister, and her husband and his family were against him writing the book. So we had an uphill task. Well, putting it bluntly, his family were snobs.
They were what?
And his father had a reserved occupation, never saw any action. And
they were snobs?
They were snobs, absolute snobs. Right. And they didn't want complete and utter snobs. You know that Mrs. Bucket in, what was that comedy show? That was like his family. Absolute keeping up appearances all the time. And because they believed they spoke like royalty, and they lived in a terraced house. It's got a little terraced house.
Right.
I actually started to write a book about it, and I thought people won't believe it. But what happened is my brother-in-law said, "What on earth is he writing a book? Who'd want to know about an infantryman? It's top generals that write books, not him." And then he got onto my sister, and my sister got onto my mother, and my mother and my sister and my brother-in-law. Well, my father had to get up about 5 o'clock in the morning and write that book in the morning, and my mother was always up at the crack of midday, and spend the mornings writing the book, and he had to stop when she got up, and I couldn't start the amount of stress we had and the amount of pressure we had. And when we finished writing the book, his parents, my brother-in-law's parents, said, "Oh, he's that achieved it now. Why did he put all the books in a skip and then get on with his life?" And that was, and
wow, that's very revealing, isn't it? I mean, that's very revealing. Anybody that writes a book, anybody, even if it's a bad one, right? Anybody that sits down and tries to have a go at putting one together, it's a major undertaking. I mean, it's very exhausting. Oh, what do you do? Just, I write books. But it is. I mean, apart from these hacks that just crank it out by committee and all this kind of stuff. But even they have a sort of, it takes a toll on you, and particularly something like this. That's quite a revealing comment, isn't it? That must have been very discouraging for him, I suppose, and probably for you as well at the same time.
Well, it's not only that. It's that, what it was, you see, I was public enemy number one because I was encouraging my dad. And my sister and that were saying, because my dad had untreated shell shock, he was talking about war on a daily basis, what happened to him.
Right.
So from an early age, this is why I can sit here like an old steam engine and reel off anything you want about that period of time when my dad was in the war, because I had it morning, noon, and night from my dad. And people say, "Oh, he goes on about the war. I'm fed up with hearing about it." And what broke my father's heart the most was when he gave a copy of the book proudly, a signed copy, to my sister, and she just pushed it aside. And when we left, he believed she shoved it in the bin. She wasn't interested, and that broke his heart. That really did break his heart. And it's so sad. And as I say, I couldn't go on about the comments we got, and the amount of hostility we went through. It was an upward hill task, and especially when we had difficulty publishing it, because publishers wouldn't touch it. They would either want to put a load of fiction in and a lot of bravado in it. And my dad said, "No, that book is going to stay as it is, warts and all. I don't want any fiction in it. I want it to be 100% true, and I want future generations to find out what we went through." So in the end, I published it, and I dug into my savings. And this was before the days of Amazon. And I published it for him, but I'm not a publisher. So I didn't know where to start. And it was an uphill task. And eventually Amazon came along, and I'm not praising Amazon. I don't particularly like them. And now the book is available on Amazon. So you can, you can buy the book on Amazon, My World War II by David J. Powis. And it's on Kindle as well. But, putting all that aside, what my dad went through, it was it's 6 years of hell. And people say that if they're involved in, say, an event like a bomb going off, it'll affect them for the rest of their lives. Imagine that happening for 6 years of your life. That's quite something.
It is quite something. I think the thing is, obviously, although you're saying 6 years, from these events as well, it was something that really was a stamp on the rest of his life. I certainly, in terms of writing a book, I mean, it's a cathartic. Maybe it was a cathartic experience for him to get it out of his system and to do it. But what was that chap that was interviewed around? I've forgotten his name now. He's just died recently. The infantryman who was in Dresden.
I know the chap. No, not Harry Patch. No, he was the First World War.
Yeah, his name slipped me, and I can see his face right now.
Speak, was it?
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't laugh. I mean, I remember this comment. I played the interview here on the show, I think, a few months ago or whenever it was, and he shuffled off this mortal coil at the grand old age of like 102 or something, which was just amazing. And maybe somebody in the chat will jog my memory with his name, but it just escapes me for now. But I remember in that interview that he had, he said that he didn't laugh for 30 years after 1945. He said he couldn't laugh.
Well, my dad, he had he had a cracking sense of humour. My dad did, and we used to I used to bounce jokes off of him, and I think that's what possibly got him through, his sense of humour.
Yes, I think. Yeah, I think it would do.
I was always coming out with flatulence jokes and things like that. Yes.
Really, I'm surprised, Eric. I'm absolutely shocked by that. That's shocking. I wouldn't expect that from someone like you. That's quite a thing.
The strange thing is, though, he would actually live it, and as I say, they call it post-traumatic stress disorder. It was untreated, and it affected me as a child because I'm not blaming my dad because he was my best friend, and I'm was very close to him. But I heard things as a child that I shouldn't have heard because the things that he saw were horrendous, and it puzzled me when I was a child. I'd look and I'd think of these films and I'd think, well, hang on, if Mr. H was so bad, and this is from a child's mind, why aren't the German army surrendering in their droves to us nice allies? Why are they fighting on? Why don't they say, oh, I've had enough of this nasty Mr. H. I want to come over to the allies because they're so free and so happy and such nice people. And some of the stories that, for example, my father witnessed and saw, and that is humanity on the battlefield. He witnessed German troops risking their lives to save the life of a wounded Tommy or an English soldier. And he also saw the British doing the same, mainly conscripts did that. And 2 stretcher bearers wandered into his lines sometime after D-Day because he was in the frontline intelligence. And frontline intelligence went ahead of the main battlefront most of the time. They were surrounded because they had to observe what was going on. And how he got into this frontline intelligence was a complete fluke, was because they had such a high casualty rate. They wanted anybody from the infantry who was quite intelligent, and that's how he got in. But he was the lowest rank in the front line. And as I say, these 2 stretcher bearers wandered into their lines, and they said, we are non-combatants, we're here to save life. And for 48 hours under heavy bombardment, they brought back English wounded, and there's a lot of ex-servicemen that owe their lives to those men, and they had to be ordered to stop because it was against the Geneva Convention. So, and everybody was choked when they had to go back to the POW camp because, and that wasn't an isolated case. It was a gentleman's war, and a lot of what you hear about, you see, yes, there was ruthlessness on both sides, but he said that both sides, my father said, both sides kept to the Geneva Convention till the really, they were sticklers for it. And he said it was quite an eye-opener, and often they came across graveyards where Germans had buried English wounded, or dead rather, and their own, and they had the graves, English, German, English, German, English, German, and they're both all exactly the same. That was in France. Yeah,
I remember. There's a report. I may have mentioned it here before, where after the war they did market research, we would call it today, but they did a lot of interviews with infantrymen, particularly from all of the combatant armies: Russians, Germans, Brits, Americans, Australians, the lot, the Japs, everyone. One of the things they found out that apparently alarmed the top brass everywhere at the time, one of the questions, or a clutch of questions, were to do with killing the enemy. And one of them was, when you were involved in a firefight, did you shoot to kill? And they found out that the vast majority of soldiers did not. They shot to wound. They didn't want to kill anyone. They just wanted to stop them. It was a bit like, will you go away? Stop firing at me. Well, if I hit you in the legs, and there are the incident you've just mentioned about the stretcher bearers there, that's also acknowledged that most, I mean, I could be wrong about this. I just remember this from a report, and no doubt you would need to speak to a lot of veterans to find out. You've got different types of people in armies. You've got solid people like these stretcher bearers. You've also got really nasty people end up in all sorts of armies and do nasty things. There's no two ways about it. On all sides, this is what happens. Some people use it as cover for venting all sorts of things. But they were saying that the acts of heroism with regards to saving wounded was a much more important factor, and there were far more events that they wanted to talk about with that regard. They would go off and risk their own lives to save a colleague's life rather than actually try and kill the enemy. I mean, I don't know whether that's necessarily true, but I remember reading something about that.
Well, I'll let you into a secret, and he's passed on now for 14 years, and he told me to keep this to myself. But I think it's time to actually open up. He never knowingly killed anybody, and he always aimed to this or to wound the legs. He said, I couldn't kill. So that is a secret that he told me, and I think I've now opened up on that one. And he said, I just couldn't. He said, to kill someone's a terrible thing. So he had a clear conscience on that. He said, I may have wounded them in the legs, and we had some pretty sticky situations that he was in. For example, he had to hide behind the wall, and there was a German unit, marching past him. They're brushing against his sleeve, and because of the moonlight and the darkness, they didn't notice him there. Yeah. But maybe one of the two did notice, but decided not to.
Yeah, well, maybe that anecdote that you've just received is more common. Maybe that's a much more common thread. Of course, Hollywood would lead us to believe that everybody is running around blowing everybody's heads off, and no doubt there were instances where you would have behaved like that if you thought you were going to die, and no doubt that would have happened. We're going to take a short musical break now, Eric. So, Fran Chan, you got your wish. I can't even speak now. Our resident audio maestro, Paul B, ran off, got hold of Get Rhythm, and turned it into a B-mix. We're going to take a short interlude. I'm here with Eric von Essex, and we're all here on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and we've just been addressing a few aspects of Eric's father's book. Let's take a short break. We'll be back after this little tune.
jump raggedy in the time. He stopped once to wipe the sweat away. You're a mighty little boy, be a working that way. He said, I like it with a big white grin, and he kept on popping and said again, rhythm, get rhythm. When you get the blues, you better get rhythm. When you get the blues, well, a jumping rhythm make you feel so fine. Gonna fix all your troubles from your worrying mind and get a rhythm. When you get the blues, get rhythm. When you get the blues, get rhythm. When you get the blues, get a rock and roll, get it in the bone, like that on your toes, and forget to go get a rhythm. You better get a rhythm when you get the blues.
Free Fall Radio, South Africa, South Africa, South Africa.
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions, and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners, and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
And we're back after that brief and really rather marvellous musical interlude by Rai Kuda. That was Get Rhythm. I hope you've all been able to get some rhythm I mean, I've got loads of it, really. I've probably got too much, actually. Paul, how much rhythm have you got? Have you got plenty of rhythm? Have you? Good.
Well, I've got all kinds of rhythm because I was able to listen to that song immediately after recoding it. But when you played it, apparently I have discovered a weakness in some of the interlinks between your station and mine because it sounded horrible here. But
did it?
I know it sounded good on your end.
Well, it did. It did. Shout out to everybody in Rumble. Did that come across okay or whatever? I was looking at the levels here, trying not to blow things up. I'm trying to
absolutely it did.
Did it? Cool. Okay.
I know
that's
for
great.
a fact that it did.
Fantastic.
Because I'm connected to you through your studio software, but then I'm connected from one computer to another using Bidalgo, and Bidalgo has noise echo cancellation enabled, and it just ripped it apart. It just did.
This is cool.
But I can't fix it without taking the show down, so it's gonna have to live. We're gonna.
No, this is cool. So everybody that's listening that's into audio, right? We're using so many audio toys around here, and Paul, of course, is an audio toy addict, as you can possibly tell, which is a good thing, by the way, because we're always sharing. Oh, look, I found this and I found that, and all that. But Bidalgo, how about that as a name for a service? Bodalgo, by the Germans.
Cool.
It's a German service, and it's very, very good. So there we go. Yeah, absolutely. Eric, welcome back. How are you?
Yeah.
Have you got rhythm too, Eric? How's it going on the rhythm front?
Oh, I certainly have got a lot of rhythm here. So, I've been tapping my foot like anything. That was good, that was, wasn't it? Came over nice and clear in my direction,
Oh, good.
Who was it?
That was,
it?
Rai Kuda. I mean, I don't know if he was actually christened Rai. Maybe it's short for something else. Or maybe it's just Rai, R-Y. It's about as short a first name as you could get, I suppose. But yeah, brilliant guitar player. He must be ancient by now. Well, when I say ancient, I suppose we're all getting a bit ancient, but fantastic guitar player. Really wonderful. If you're into that sort of thing. And I am. So that was great. Thanks, Fran Chan, for that. See, you got ask and you will get. And also a quick shout out to Warren App Arthur. I love saying the whole username. Hi, Warren. Thanks. Warren came up with the name to put us out of our misery. It was Victor Gregg. Of course it was. I ought to know. I've listened to the clip about 20 times, but the name just escaped me. Thanks, Warren, for the mind jog there. That's always that's much appreciated. Yeah, absolutely. So, Paul. D-Day in the States, is there any sort of sense that it's an event over there? What's it like? Or is it more of a sort of Brit thing? No sense at all? No,
not really.
No,
not really. I mean, we really don't hear much at all. I mean, I've heard more about D-Day on the radio programs that I've been a part of this week than ever before in my history.
Really?
So I don't know what the deal is.
Wow.
we were actually on a show this morning. We were talking about numerology and how today being 6/6/24, if you break that down, it actually becomes a 666 day. And if you stop there, I mean, it looks like we've got it now. We're going to get it. But if you go a step further, and break it down to a single number like you're supposed to. 6 plus 6 is 12. 1 plus 2 is 13. Plus 6 is no.
1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 6 is 9. Yeah. Take away 2.
Plus 6 is 9.
Yeah.
Right.
And divide by 5 if it's Tuesday.
You say you bailed me out. Okay, 6 plus 6 is 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 6 is 9. So it is a 9 day, and 9 is a day of completion, of finality, of the last dying gasps of whatever was before, because the 1 is the number that immediately follows, and that is a number for new beginnings. So what I choose to look at today as is the last dying gasp of the globalist deep state, and that tomorrow everything should be just ducky and we'll wake up with
I like that. I'll go along with that. We might, it's good. And we might as well have a positive vibe. It's just as unprovable as a negative vibe, it seems to me. I mean, I've sent a lot of sort of messages rattling around on X that we're going to have a nuclear war. About time too. Bring it on. I can't wait. It's just nonsense. Yeah, it's just gibberish. Yeah, quick. What can we do to terrify anybody with all these sorts of things? So, yes, there's certain people saying that everything's lighting up and they're going to unleash all these nuclear weapons. Of course, there is a great deal of debate about whether nuclear weapons even exist at all. Of course, they exist as even if they don't exist in reality. They've done the damage psychologically. I mean, I don't know whether I go along with this or not, but certainly, I mean, there's a whole thing called No Nukes, a website. I stumbled across it years ago. It was a bit too much for me to take on at the time. I was sort of, trying to get to grips with making tea every day, another really basic but challenging fact for someone like me. But that's a whole field of study. It's a bit too esoteric for me, but I guess engineers would know or wouldn't. The main thing I remember seeing a long time back was I think it was a New Zealand or an Australian scientist, was talking about the sheer complexities of getting these things to detonate. And it's not like light a fuse and stand back. And he was saying that it's almost impossible to get them to go off. But hey ho, what do I know? And you say, no, they've got thousands of these things. Well, we've been told that. Listen, I don't want them to test them. Look, we'll show you. No, don't do that. That's okay. But we've got so much bizarre talk taking place here, which, just coming back, Eric, to the comment you were making earlier about how your dad was pilloried or sort of, verbally rebuffed in the run-up to World War II, a bit like with the COVID thing. If you're not for it, you're against it, that kind of nonsense. You can see the same sort of psychological malarkey as being built up now by the imbeciles who masquerade as our leaders. I mean, you must have noticed that too, Eric, I must have thought, in recent weeks. Yeah.
Yes. It's very, I mean, people say, we could never go to war with Russia over Ukraine and things like that. People they're so much against it. This was the feelings in the 1930s. It was a very anti-war feelings in the 1930s in this country because they'd had a gutful in the First World War. And what happened is after World War One, there's a lot of militant groups that started up. That this country was on the tipping edge of a revolution. And these groups got infiltrated, as they do today, and the leaders of them were trashed. And then along comes, I won't mention it because they've probably got very good lawyers, a well-known Veterans Association, shall we say, 1921. And that started off as a peace organisation. And they actually had a delegation that went to Germany to try and prevent World War II. But then in 1939, it became very politicized. And really, in my view, allegedly, that organization that my father absolutely despised is really a propaganda agency for the government because it projects an image of veterans that best suits governments, and then they sweep all the terrible things that has happened under the carpet. And really, I'd like to dispel a few myths. For example, General Montgomery was generally hated by the troops, and if I could have a very brief explanation of why this was so, and especially my father's lot. You imagine my father had been through the full siege of Malta, okay, where he almost starved to death. They were told officially that they were going home to see their families and all that. They got on board the ship. They noticed it was going in the wrong direction. They landed in Egypt. And then they started, and they were like walking skeletons, these fellas. And a lot of the chaps died through overeating because their stomachs had shrunk. And they died of other diseases. And during the siege, a lot of them died of malnutrition. I mean, my dad had 6 biscuits, army biscuits, a day to live on. That was it. No, and a little bit of Palestinian chocolate. And that's why I'm a little bit sympathetic to Palestine, because it was thanks to Palestine that kept me dad alive.
Yeah.
With the Palestinian chocolate. And it was mouldy. They got it through. But what I was going to say is General Jumbo Wilson addressed the men in Egypt and said, well, you're going to go home, but you've got a small job to do first. And that small job was the invasion of Sicily, where they had a terrible battle at Regalbuto Ridge. And that's where my dad got into the intelligence section.
What year was that? What year was that battle in Sicily? Is that 44 then?
43.
43.
I believe
okay.
it's 43, yes.
Yeah.
And Montgomery came along and he addressed the troops and he said, he spoke to them like children, as if they were so keen to get the enemy, as if they hadn't seen any action. Oh, we're going to give you a chance to go and have a go at the enemy. And he was talking all this. And then suddenly he was getting right comments. And the senior officers turned a blind eye because they hated Montgomery as well. And Montgomery had to make a hasty retreat because the remarks and the swear and the people shouting at him was so much that he legged it. And this is a secret, which I'm going to say now, which is I'm not sure, but my father witnessed this. When they invaded Italy, they went in half strength because the men were so demoralized, half of them deserted. And that's a fact. Now, that is something you won't find in the history books, but that is 100% true. So
right.
Now, come D-Day, they came back and they had their pay books taken from them, a new pay books given to them, which said that they're A1 fit and they never had a medical. So that historians like Dan, what's his name? I won't mention his surname, but you know, a famous one that's on the mainstream, looks back all through the records and says, oh, these men were A1 fit. No, they weren't. And this is where these thick academics who look through all the books and are book historians, those books were written, basically a lot of it was lies because, as I say, they weren't A1 fit and they were very unfit, the men. But of course, they were the initial assault that Montgomery expected to get completely wiped off the face of the earth. And they all believed when they're going over on the ship that that would be their last because they survived two previous invasions. They're not going to survive this one. And it was a bit like, I don't know if you've seen the film, what is it now, On the Beach, where there's been a nuclear war and everybody's doing everything because they won't live very long. That was what they were like. That was the attitude on the ship. People were gambling, throwing all their money away because they realised they probably won't be alive the next day.
Yeah, well, there's a film that will be made.
They did survive, but if you see the film,
yeah,
yes, that's right. And I mean, if you see the film Saving Private Ryan, it's so inaccurate. I mean, as I say, my father was on the beach adjacent to them, and he said they were actually being pounded by guns. Not only all you saw on Saving Private Ryan was the machine guns going. There's not only that, there's tracer bullets going everywhere. And he said by some miracle, these tracer bullets missed him. How they missed him, he doesn't know, but they missed him. And the other thing is that you always see the Americans with their chin straps of their helmets undone.
Hmm.
No, they had to do them up because when they got off the landing craft, they went into deep water. My dad went underwater and almost drowned. And they managed to just get to get ashore because these landing crafts beached prematurely. But again, when they got into France deeper, we're given the impression that the French were starving and it was terrible. He said all the shops they came to in the villages were well stocked. There was no shortage of food. And the attitude of the people couldn't have been colder, and he could understand that. He said, and a lot of them just said, "Go home, Tommy. We don't want to be liberated," in broken English. And many of them were very insulting, and they had to fight against French militia who was holding the advancing troops up so that the Germans could regroup. But when you see how much of France was bombed by the Allies, and what you were saying, I think it was earlier, where there was more French killed due to Allied bombardment, and of course you know that the French fleet got destroyed in 1940 under the orders of Churchill by the Royal Navy, where a lot of French were killed. No wonder the French disliked us and hated us. Look at it from their point of view.
Yeah, there are all these other little aspects. They're not little, actually. There are all these other aspects, I should say, which are kind of covered up by one dusty lie after another. After you've blown a few off, you reveal another one. There's a lot going on with this stuff. There's a historian over here who's got quite a following on YouTube called Simon Webb. He's a writer as well. I agree with some of what he says and other things not, but then he would say the same of anybody else, as we all do, which is fine. But he'd put out a post about this. Somebody sent me a link, actually. Henry, if you're hearing this, thanks very much for sending me this. It was very apt. I emailed him back to say, this is rather apt for today. And so I watched this 5-minute clip a little bit earlier today, and he was talking about this very thing, that the anger that the French had towards the British was that he was talking about Coventry, for example, and the bombing of Coventry, and there was something like, there was a day in London where 1,800 people died on one bombing raid day in 1940 or 40, whenever it was. And he said, however, there are cities or towns in France where there were no buildings left at all, nothing. And there was one place where they lost 2,800 people in a day. And he was going on to state that you may remember, obviously we remember President Charles de Gaulle, him with the enormous nebbish, a nose that only a mother could love. I guess it was an enormous thing. And he, of course, resisted and was very dismissive of the British desire, supposedly. I don't remember my dad expressing any desire of this or anybody else, but apparently the British had a desire to join the common market. And I guess from the point of view of a shared economic trading space, fine. But of course, we know what that was. It was just the thin end of the wedge to bring the full sort of onslaught of political controls in the European Union and communism, basically, blah, 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 blah. But this is why de Gaulle resisted Britain joining what he considered to be his and Germany's little club. Very ironic that the French and Germans, of course, have scrapped a great deal too. I think Hitler said that the greatest enemy they had historically was the French. Although, of course, in retrospect, it could be said to have been the Russians. But then I wouldn't say it was the Russians. I would say it was those forces in charge of Russia, which is a slightly different thing, but a really key point, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that led through to that, and you're absolutely right with regards to all the death that the Allied bombing brought to France. Something not talked about too much. It seems to me that when you look at these things and look at more of them, you see as much mess as much planned, organised victory. It's a mess. It's horrific. The whole thing is out of order. And why is it relevant? Because, as we just touched upon a few moments ago, we've got the same sort of psychological warfare being built up against us gradually, because apparently now Russia is a really naughty place and these people have done terrible things, and Ukraine is completely innocent, wouldn't hurt a fly, and the Russians And of course, this is more. It's bound to be manure. You don't even need to, it's manure, because all the historical events that we've been told about, which we've been able to examine because they're so far back in time now, apparently they don't count. Well, they do count, because you see the pattern, and we're lied to about all of them. So, and it's not that I view Putin necessarily as the great savior of anything much, but there's a reason why it took place. And of course, it's not the reason that's being communicated in the national press, because the intelligence services won't allow that, because it will undermine the pitch that they're about to make to us. I mean, it's asinine what's taking place. That idiot, whoever he is, Brigadier Spoon up his bottom, who spoke about a year and a half ago, we've got to prepare for war with Russia. Well, you and your wife can do it, mate. These people are just Johnny Arsehole. They're ridiculous. They're part of an organisation that's undermined and stripped out the cultural identity of this nation since 1945, and now they're pretending that it exists, and we've all got to go off and fight for it again. Fight for what? To be ruled by people like you. I think this is the great danger. It's not, yes, we do have external enemies, but the one that causes most of the trouble is our own supposed government, because it's not ours. It's definitely not ours. But don't worry, we'll all be able to vote in a few weeks' time, and we'll get that all put right. It'll be great, won't it? Yeah.
More people have been killed by their own governments than all the wars put together.
I think so.
They're our greatest enemy.
Yes.
And when you hear of why the government treated disabled veterans after World War II, I think we treated prisoners better than they treated disabled veterans, and it's something that's been swept under the carpet, completely swept under the carpet. But going back to what you were saying about bombing in France, my father witnessed. He was in a field, and he said everything went silent. All the guns went silent, everything, and he saw this massive. He's never seen so many bombers in the air. He said it was like a kind of cloud that came out. It actually started like a kind of twilight, and the noise of these bombers, all different levels, quite low. I can't remember for the life of me what city they were going to bomb. I don't want to guess, but they were in Normandy. I don't know. It'd be in his book. I can't remember. But he said he's never seen anything like it. Throughout the horizon, he said maybe it was 1,000 bomber raid. He doesn't know, but he said they're all different levels. But the noise, he said, it was incredible, and it was actually blotting out the sun. It was like a giant cloud going over these bombers to bomb a city in France. Innocent civilians, no doubt. And the other thing is that the IRAP seem to have this attitude, and I think they've still got it, that the men were so keen to go and kill and go and fight. They couldn't wait to do their best. This is Montgomery's attitude. And when he came out against people saying, what, he's nuts, isn't he? He's bonkers. I mean, the other one was Urquhart. Now, he was responsible for the bridge too far. That was Arnhem. Now, my father witnessed Urquhart. He was mad.
Right.
There was a situation where the Germans were heavily bombing a road that with mortars, and they were being held back. And Urquhart came along with a jet in a jeep, and they said, "Don't go any further, sir. I'm afraid that area is being heavily mortared." And he said, "Drive on," to the driver. The driver drove on. Suddenly, boom! His jeep got blown up, killed the driver. He came staggering out, blood coming from his head. "Bring up another jeep." And they all said, "He's bloody mad. He's bonkers. He's nuts." And that was General Urquhart. And
you didn't get stories like that in Commando War comics, did you, Eric? Do you remember Commando War comics and all those things? They were still selling.
Them, yes.
Yeah, they were selling those things right into the 70s. They may have gone on even later than that. Come here, Fritz. All this kind of stuff. You just trained on this. It's very powerful on an 8-year-old mind. On an 8-year-old mind, it's overpowering. You just go, oh yeah, those bloody Germans and everything, you know. So you end up being a chump for the first 20, 30 years of your life until you actually decide to look at things. A couple of things just to note from the chat. Quick shout out. First of all, Bruce Cathy. Thank you very much, XR. I was mentioning a few moments ago a New Zealand, a Kiwi scientist who was talking about the sheer difficulty of detonating atomic weapons. His name, Bruce Cathy, Cathie. There are videos, or there were, of him explaining this. And there's another comment from XO. He says that Cathy predicted a forthcoming French nuclear test with his mathematics. So it's mathematically very complicated thing. This is, but don't worry, we can always duck and cover. I think that's what you'll be doing, Paul, over in America. Don't you duck and cover when the atomic bombs start to drop? Isn't that what happens? No, he's already ducked and covered. He's gone.
Blimey.
Yeah. Well, he's there somewhere. He's probably, I don't know, he's probably setting up his own nuclear weapon right now. And another comment from Sussex Man. Hi, Sussex Man. Welcome to the show. Good to have you here, as always. D-Day, 6th of June. And it started at 6 a.m. on the 6th of June on the 6th month. 666. They do like their numbers, don't they? Don't they love their numbers? They're really into their number stuff.
Cut in there?
You can. Of course.
Can I cut in there, Paul? Sorry, I hope you don't think I'm rude. I'm sorry to talk over it, but my father was very much into numerology, and he predicted it wasn't known as D-Day beforehand. It was known as the Second Front, and he predicted D-Day whilst in Sicily using numerology, because you notice World War II is all 3, 6, and 9s. It started on the 3rd, the 9th, 39. Mr. H came to power in 1933. And my father, he could never, to the day he died, he couldn't work. It worked out perfect with numerology, except for the 44. He could never quite work out where the 44 came from. But he went in at 6:30 because the Americans went in half an hour beforehand, and on the right flank, and it was due to be the 5th of June. People don't realise that. And it was delayed 24 hours because the weather conditions were too bad. So it was the 6th of June. But
they were bad.
3, 6, 9.
Yeah, they were.
Yes.
I think I was mentioning to you the other day, my father was in the Navy, and he was on active duty for D-Day, so he was there, head signalman on a destroyer. And it was, I think I mentioned when we were talking on Sunday, and it's always these supposedly small things that really stick out with me. The sheer mess of organising men running around and doing things. You just think, it's just complete. Half of it's chaos to some degree. I know they know what they're doing, but he was saying that he'd got his sea legs instantly because he signed up for the Navy when he was 17. He wanted to go in. I never asked him why, but he did. So he volunteered and went in and chose the Navy and got in straight away. But he had sea legs. He never got seasick in his life ever. He was just naturally built that way. And he told me, he said the crossing was very bad. He said the channel can be very bad, and he'd been in typhoons out in the South China Seas and all this kind of stuff. He'd been in some really rough times, and he was fine. It's okay, it's only a bit of a storm. But he said it was really rough. He said, for me, it was fine. He said, but we looked down at these poor lads. They were taking Canadians over, I think. And he said half of them were not fit to fight because they'd lost their breakfast and everything else. They were just, he said it was a mess down there. Everybody's just throwing up. They couldn't deal with it. So they were drained of any physical energy when they were coming off of and it's these small points, these little things, which are not so little, which lead to these permanent messes. And yet, there we go, this colossal event. I also mentioned today, usually, I'm on the South Coast, and of course, it's noted for airfields during the Battle of Britain here, and there are still Spitfires that fly around. And 10 years ago, we did get one. So that would have been on the 70th anniversary in 2014. And because I remember my son still goes on about it today. He said, do you remember that day when it came round? I said, yes. He said, it's fantastic, isn't it? I said, all those planes from that era just sound amazing. There's something about the sound of them. I don't know what it is. It's not even about the warfare. It's just about this engineering thing zipping through the air, making that sound. And we didn't get one today. I'm a bit cross. So if you're on the South Coast and you got one, let me know. If you saw a Spitfire today, they usually just send out a sold one. I mean, they're bloody old now, these things. They're still flying. Well, it's 80 years since they made them. So it's pretty impressive that they managed to rustle them up and get all that kind of stuff done. Where are we? We're at the top of the hour. No one's putting any more song requests. I mean, they're just... yeah, sorry. Go on. Yeah.
Horrors.
No, sorry. sorry, I don't want to chime in there. You had someone in the background there. But
No,
what I
you
was
can
gonna
chime
say
in. You can chime in.
is-
That was Paul. You can chime in, Eric. It's fine.
It's just me.
Sorry, Paul, I didn't mean to talk over you, but what I'm going to say is that I think it's interesting that the propaganda come out with, like, they gave their today so we can have our tomorrows. But when you see the way we were supposed to have been the victor in that war and the way what's happening now, David Irving said something very interesting, and I can't repeat it verbatim, but it was on the lines of, if the men on those landing craft on D-Day could have seen life today, they wouldn't have gone 40 yards up the beach. And my father, before he died, he was means tested.
Yeah.
And a means tester is sitting there opposite. I think we said this on Sunday. And he was looking sad. He was sitting there and he said, if only would have known when we were, in World War II, that it was going to end up like this. We'd have all thrown our rifles down and given up. And the means tester grinned and went, something like, a lot of veterans say this, we've all got to pay our way. And quite honestly, if once could kill, there'd have been too small. If she's a woman, so I wouldn't have. But if it was a bloke, I think I'd have felt like landing in one, quite honestly, because we just looked straight through her and didn't say a word. And these people are so thick-skinned; it just carried on as normal. I mean, what he'd been through, and he'd been denied a pension because, and then they found out that these pensions were stopped incorrectly. He reapplied for it in the late 80s, but they lost it, so he had to reapply again. But there's no back pay, none at all. The way this country treated the veterans is absolutely disgusting. And why should they rely on charity? It just doesn't make sense. But the other thing is the call-up form, which I was going to mention. My dad's call-up form said Territorial Army on it. So the historians will look at that and say, oh, my dad was a volunteer. He wasn't a volunteer. He was a conscript. This is another bit of a historical twist that they do to things.
Mm-hmm.
And the men at the time, they believed that seasoned troops meant that they wanted to kill these men off because it's cheaper to bury them than it is for them to have a lifetime on welfare.
Of course.
And that's what
of course it is. This is the key. Is this not the key hidden narrative in all of these things, Eric? You're absolutely right. It's the internal enemy. Under the cover of warfare, all sorts of scores, they're not even scores, are settled. It's a terrible event, for this sort of stuff. Terrible things happen, like with people in your own side. Like you're talking about Monty's basically emotional indifference to the welfare of a lot of his men. I found him quite an impressive communicator when I saw one of the last interviews that he did. He's very British, all that kind of stuff. And he was making what appeared to be really rather valid points. I know someone's written a comment in here about him being detested by the other Allied commanders. Maybe he was, or disliked intensely. I have no idea. You see, there's all that going on. Oh, I'm going to lead the army. No, I am. It's this it's the internal ambition within your own military units that's probably half the problem, I would have thought, But he did an interview on Canadian television about 1962 or 3. It's only about 20 minutes long. I ought to dig it up, really, and play it sometime, I guess. He comes across as a man with an extremely firm mind. His father was a vicar, by the way. And he said, I didn't really know my father very well. He said he spent most of his time communing with the angels or something like that, which I thought was rather witty. And he was at the Somme, was Montgomery, that morning. And he was talking about this, and he said, because he was in charge of a platoon or whatever the name of it was, and he said, that morning by lunchtime, we had 12,000 men dead after 2 hours, something like that, right? And then he was talking about some battles that he'd organised in the Second World War where they'd lost 3,000 men over 4 weeks. He said, now, you're still losing life, he said, but we're containing it and dealing with it a lot better. I guess they're making really miserable emotionless, callous decisions. I'm not trying to defend him, nor am I trying to attack him. The fact is I wasn't there and I didn't know him. And no doubt he made some horrible decisions and maybe he made some good ones. But if the troops didn't like him, I mean, he was also talking about what he did to, apparently, this is what he said, of course, but your father's anecdotes would contradict this, but he went all around England, stood on the top of a jeep, because he said men have got to see you and see who you are. And when he got wounded in World War One, he spent several weeks recovering. I think he got shot in the leg or something, so the guy had obviously been through it. But he spent all his time thinking about warfare, because he said what we were doing in World War One, he said, was, I don't know if he used the word madness, but he said it was just unsustainable stupidity. It was just ridiculous. If wars have got to be fought, they need to be fought much more efficiently. So there's so many other things going on. I mean, they were fighting a war against the British public psychologically. They began that in World War One. Those war psychology departments never stopped. In fact, they're still present with us today. On the internet, isn't there a sort of brigade, 77th Brigade, is it, or something, that's out there snivelling around in people's Twitter feeds and everything, and putting plants in and trying to knock conversations off topic, which they will be very successful at doing. It's relatively easy to do that kind of thing, to get a crowd moving this way and that. So it's non-stop. Our government, as they say, is the enemy. And what's that other phrase? It's something like, before a government takes its nation to war, first it must go to war on its own people. And it's never stopped. I think they've been applying sort of military efficient psychological programming on us ever since they discovered the great bounty that they can have from all of this. And now you've got this nonsense here with this Russia thing. They're just rolling out the same thing. And, I heard someone say the other day, well, most people are going to fall for it. Of course, I'm still thinking, probably naively, I guess, no, they won't. Surely not. But then look at COVID. That's I think we've mentioned this before. The sheer number of people that just absorbed the government instruction, that internalized it and took it on board and never asked a question about it, not once ever. And now we're seeing these excess death reports come out, which are not being promoted, is the wrong word, but they're not being featured to the degree that they ought to be within a respectable mainstream press, which of course we don't have. We don't have that. So it's down to people like us to try and fill the void as best we can to some degree, I guess, that kind of stuff. It's non-stop. Sorry, Paul. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know. I really try to avoid getting on a soapbox, particularly on your programs, because I like them to remain positive.
Get on it. But, come on, get on that soapbox.
Revisiting the travesties and abuses of veterans. This is a global thing. Every country does it. Let's just say every country that is backed by the globalists and the World Economic Forum and everything else. Every country does it because those veterans, they've served their purpose, and the globalists have absolutely no respect for human life. So they don't care if a veteran has a quality of life. They don't care. Also, they realize that veteran is a credible threat because he or she is a trained killer. They have skills and resources and abilities that they can train civilians and actually turn civilians into weapons. And these globalists fear that because they know who the veterans are. They don't know who they've been talking to. So they're going to deny them their pensions. First of all, before they even get on the first boat, they're going to load them up with literally tens, if not hundreds of inoculations, vaccinations, whatever you want to call them. They are essentially putting sufficient poison in their bodies that the life expectancy of anyone in the military service is only 4 to 6 years. Basically, that's how long they expect them to serve in the military. By the time they're done, they've got Gulf War syndrome. No, that didn't come from the artificially sweetened sodas that were cooking in the desert. No, it came from the injections that they were given before they even went over there. It was by design. And it's...
Yeah.
It's absolutely reprehensible. It's horrible. And the sheeple, and yes, I will use the term sheeple, they will believe every single word they say. It's sickening. Sickening. Okay, soapbox done. Soapbox over.
No, that's good. It is sickening. I mean, it makes me think back to, not that I was around at the time, but to the Roman Empire, right? And the strength of the legions. And of course, the guys in charge of Rome made sure that the armies, they were not allowed to enter Rome, probably for these very reasons, because I guess when you have I don't guess, it seems pretty obvious. If you're fighting that type of warfare, which they were fighting, of course, back then, which is based on muscle power and horsepower, that was it, and spear power, a very physical type of combat, let's put it that way. You don't got sort of machine guns picking people off from 300 yards and this kind of stuff. Then your commander in the field, who was always in the field, leading you to victory, would become incredibly popular, for you lived because of him and you won because of him and you got the spoils because of him. And of course the political class no doubt did fear the rise of the populist military leader. And so what you're talking about to some degree is a sort of evolution of the way that the political powers contain the military powers, by either getting them on side or whatever. I mean, they're all part of one big sort of extended club, it seems to me. And of course they tell us that they've defended this nation, but half the fights that we've had, most of them for the past few hundred years, have all been completely avoidable unless you are the leaders of these particular nations and you want your club to beat the crap out of the other one down the road. And that's part of it. I mean, they're so venal, these people, but that's because they don't do the fighting. Very easy to be brave with other men's lives when you're at home. I mean, you were talking about David Irving, and I'm going through Nuremberg, the last battle at the moment. Some very revealing things, really, about every time you read more and more stuff about Churchill, you get revealed more facts, and they're nearly all bad. There's nothing good, really. It just gets worse and worse. I mean, there's the incident when he got wind of a bombing raid coming to London, so he was in his car legging it up the road, to go somewhere safe, telling everybody they'd be there, seeing it out with them, And then he gets message that the raid had been called off due to bad weather, so he turns the car around and comes back to London and says, yeah, cool, that was, It's non-stop with these guys. It's just non-stop. And plotting the destruction and ruin of people. So why would they think otherwise when that we're apparently under peace times? I don't know. It does make you spit feathers. It really does. I mean, it's very bad, obviously, for that generation from World War II, most of whom now have passed, the ones that really suffered and came back to nothing. And I've mentioned here before, you were talking about revolution in the 20s, but there was certainly, I got information from someone who came from a strong military family, from Essex, Eric, that I was working with 25, 30 years ago. And they'd lost a lot of family members during that war. And he had a real, he was very unhappy about it to that day. And he was telling me, and I've mentioned it here before on the show, but it's worth repeating now on this one, that the folk clubs of England after World War II were very popular because the beer was cheap. And so, it was like a recovery centre in many ways. These guys that had, seen a lot of death, probably delivered death, been through things. And he told me that we were very close. It was a powder keg because they'd gone off and come back to nothing, lost a lot of friends for what they perceived in due course was for nothing at all. In fact, it was for less than nothing because Churchill basically squandered and effectively transferred everything that had been built through the empire over to America. But of course, it's the same sort of hands actually behind the whole thing, as many people well know. It's that city group, the money power, were in charge of the whole thing. They just moved their base of operations to the States, really, and took the game over there. And so they were very close to kicking off. And they changed the laws or the licensing laws around folk clubs so that it was very difficult for them to carry on operating. Maybe they put some kind of a license fee or they put extra taxation on the beer or whatever. They would have done something to squeeze it so that it became less popular and therefore denied the people the communication space that they know and that we know is absolutely necessary if people are to communicate the truth to one another. And as far as they're concerned, dreadfully, if we want to then act on it. And that's what they don't want to see. So, I mean, it would have been very difficult, of course, to intimidate lots of ex-squaddies, wouldn't it? Yeah, we're going to kill you. Oh, it's okay. We've been living with that for 6 years. You know, you can't bully people like that to the degree that they could us. We're much softer, of course, because of our recent history, I guess.
Well, look up the 1920s Firearms Act. It was 1920 Firearms Act, because before 1920, not many people realise you could buy arms over the counter in similar to the way you can in some states in America. They were readily available. And the government was so terrified that there's these well-trained men coming back from the front who were coming back to nothing, and they were promised a land fit for heroes and milk and honey and etc., etc., that, again, we was on a knife edge where there's going to have a revolution. So you can look this up, 1920 Firearms Act. That took the arms away from the people. And then in 1921, a veterans organisation was started. Need I say more?
Yes. A very well organised and funded veterans organisation. How convenient, eh? Yes.
Slap my thigh. What a surprise. And also, a lot of and the other thing that came about, and I'm going slightly off topic now, but I'll show you what I am and I'm not, is that after World War One, they came out with this idea of a spiritual awakening, where people believe that there's going to be a spiritual awakening and everything's going to be fine. And I found out that, do you know who invented this spiritual awakening? It's nothing to do with religion. It was the secret services. Because whilst people are waiting for a spiritual awakening, they're not thinking of blowing the brains out of, not thinking of having a revolution, are they?
Mm-hmm. I'm with you on that. The New Age movement. What's her name?
No.
Who's that? Annie Besant? Is it? I can't remember. The Lucis Trust and all this other crap that they come out with. They're unbelievably stupid.
Right.
These people. Yeah, it's just complete gibberish. We're going to do this, and the whole world's going to come together in peace. No thanks, not interested. If you leave us alone, we will naturally be in peace. You know, but it's the peacemongers are the bringers of death. What's the phrase? Bloody do-gooders. They are bloody as well. Holy moly!
It's
there is
waiting
evidence.
for a savior.
That's right, and there's evidence that the hippie movement was started by the CIA.
Of course.
I think Paul would know more about that. But when you look at it, it was very successful because it stopped people revolting. It stopped people questioning, because whilst they thought there was some spiritual awakening and everything's going to be good, that was, look at the Vietnam War, for example. You know, it's all going to be good. It was a kind of sideshow, because there's body bags coming back from Vietnam. And this is another thing that's overlooked about war that I looked into, because when my dad finished his book, I started getting comments from the children of veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a little bit of research, and in Australia, they looked into the veterans' offsprings after the Vietnam War, because Australia was involved in the Vietnam, and they found that the suicide rate was 29% higher amongst veterans' children than the general community. And there is, if you look at Dr. Bruce Lipton, what he was saying with epigenetics and things like that, the children are affected. I mean, I was affected by what my father went through, because hearing World War II every day from a very early age, it does affect you. And there's lots of others. I got a communication from a girl down in Devon, and she was very, very hypersensitive, and she went to a special school. And this special school she went to, it was estimated around 80% of the children there, their parents had a real tough time during World War II. Adds up.
Yeah.
And it affects future generations. And this is why when I see what's happening in the Middle East, I think, how are those children going to suffer? Or the offsprings of those troops? And I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying the offsprings of Ukraine as well. How the offsprings, children that are about 9 or 8 years old now, or haven't been born yet, because it seems to do something, because I was born long time after the war, as you were, Paul, and this is something that, again, that's not looked into, how the children are affected. Now, I often wonder whether we are getting the sort of, shall we say, we're seeing this weirdness in society. Yes, it's partly to do with social engineers, but I'm wondering how much of it is to do with 2 world wars. So that's a little bit of something to add into the mix.
I guess a great deal. A great deal. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to say you're born to the parents that you're born to, in the location that you're born to, into the race that you are born into at the time, and you arrive, and it's like the way it is, whatever it is. And I hear people talk about generations going, if someone's written here, Exo writes, so anti-hippie, you lot. Yeah, bloody damn hippies. Get your hair cut. I should have been a hippie, I suppose. Actually, I had masses of long hair in the 70s. I was sort of one of those kids. I never did the punk thing because I couldn't stand it. It was just absolutely ridiculous nonsense. So I was just, it was just easier to not go to the barbers, wasn't it? It just seemed to make much more sense to me than actually spending extra effort to go to the barbers and giving them your money. Couldn't work that one out at all. I'm a northerner. I don't want to be giving brass to people just to cut my hair off. It's just ridiculous. So... But yeah, I think the hippie movement was, as you said, just tracking back there. It was definitely made that way. It was an organised event. And I think to some degree it's because they had to hijack it, because there was a genuine groundswell of grief. So you remember the student riots in France? When was that, 67? They were genuine. They were
68.
real. Yeah, 68. I remember that's one of my earliest memories of sort of discord on the TV, because I think that was covered on the news every day. So I'd have been 8 years of age back then. But that was they were serious guys, those students. It was a much more serious sort of situation. And I remember, being young in the 60s. Yes. and every time we saw something about World War II, it could have been a million years ago. I mean, literally, I remember that experience of going, what's this? This is just, look, it's black and white. It's ancient. Who are these people? Oh, it's got nothing to do with us now. And yet it was a mere 20 years after it ended, which now is 20 years since 9/11. It's more. Those sorts of things, they ring sort of in you, the way that you perceive things at different ages, and then it's all piling up on us and coming together in a clear thing. Somebody writes, by the way, Paul, Ether writes, a great soapbox. It was a very good soapbox. You can always soapbox anytime. And I'm just going to take this opportunity to use the word soapbox again. We've just launched, or I should say I'm part of a little team that's just set up a station called Radio Soapbox at radiosoapbox.com. So, Paul, you can be on there 24/7 if you like. You can kick off all day long. Yeah, see, it's specially designed for you. I had you in mind when we're thinking of the name for it. So this show's currently going out over Radio Soapbox. It's a fledgling effort. By golly, it's tidy. But what we're doing, just to let you know, is that the base of it is the WBN 324 main feed. So if you tune in at any time, you're going to pick up Alex Jones growling and doing his stuff. He was on before the show anyway on WBN. I know he's been having a lot of fun recently with his studio or something. Not that I follow it too closely. And what we're going to try and do, if we can, is bring more UK-centric material to bear in there, because I just think it would be a good thing. We're going to give it a go. It might not work, but if it does work, then there's a home for you. And anybody out there that's got itching, say, I think I could get behind the mic for a couple of hours a week or do something, then get in touch. Go to radiosoapbox.com. There'll be Telegram groups and all the other sort of gubbins coming along, I guess, at some point, once we find someone to actually moderate these things. It's not setting them up, as people well know. It's managing them and making sure they stay healthy and clean. It's difficult. And the main drive for it is that, as you know, I live in Britain, and Eric lives in Britain too, and apparently we've got free speech, so we are told, but there's not too much truth in that, I'm afraid. There's not as much truth in it as there used to be. And so we have to be a little bit more guarded, and this show is a reflection of that. We have to operate a certain type of restraint, and I don't mind, because I think there's more than one way to skin a cat. The main essence of the things is that we're in a lot of trouble, and we have to talk about it, if nothing else. Even if it's like, we're just about out of our chips. I don't care. At least we get to tell jokes, or at least Eric does a lot. We get to do a lot of laughing, and that's a key part of it as well. Anyway, we had another song request in. How about that? Warren seems to be the one that really
we
likes
did.
to. We did. He just loves throwing the song requests in. So thanks for this, Warren. Your wish is our command. This is a 432 hertz mix of, you'll know this one. Everybody knows this one. You do if you're in Britain. We're going to take a short musical break. We'll be back after this little song from the Hollies.
The road is long with a many a winding tongue that leads us to who knows where, who knows where. But I'm strong. It's a long, long road from which there is no return. While we're on the way to there, why not share?
Well, we ain't heavy here, are we? Or are we? Are we heavy? We might be heavy. I don't really know. That's an old classic. Somebody, Exa wrote it, and listen to this. What a comment is this like? This is half the music you treasure wouldn't exist without those wasted hippie types. Oh dear, been found out.
Do you know what Ronald Reagan called a hippie? He described one. He said, a hippie is someone that walks like Tarzan, speaks like Jane, and smells like Cheetah. That was Ronald Reagan.
What a lad. What a lad. Eh? Yeah.
But he had a good laugh with him, wouldn't he, you know?
Yeah. He's good.
That remix actually turned out great.
Yeah. It's a good song, that. It really is a good song.
Yeah, well, you can't miss with good material.
You can't. And it's a good point. The musical, although there's all sorts of question marks against this band and that band and blah, 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 the fact is that the good stuff, it seems to me, over the late 50s, 60s and 70s into the early 80s, possibly that kind of period, about 25, 30 years, maybe, 55 to 85. And I know there's been some good stuff after that, but it's pretty amazing. Maybe it was meant to be amazing to keep us all distracted. Lots of money was sunk into it. Quick! Get him on the music stuff. I don't know. But it did produce an awful lot of good stuff, I think, anyway. And a quick shout out to Reconciliation. Nice name, Reconciliation, there in the chat. Who's just informed me that Radio Soapbox dropped the feed for this show. There's a bit of recalcitrant tech for you, Paul. You can chuckle about that. Anyway, I've reinitiated on it. It's early days for that little station, but thanks for the heads up on that so that we got it corrected. I think I know what happened there. Just get my technical trousers going, making sure that everything keeps ticking over. Now, we've been looking at the past. We've got about 25 minutes left on the show today. What have we got to look forward to over the next few weeks, apart from voting like Billio, which is going to be such good fun, isn't it? Of course, you, Paul, you don't get to vote for several months yet, but as I said early on, it's very exciting for all of us, knowing that loads and loads of people are going to do something that's not going to make a shit bit of difference. I think that word was justified there. I don't think that's too bad. I caught a glimpse of, they've started doing, oh God, it's so desperately pathetic, this. They've started doing these debates between the leaders of ostensibly the only two parties that could possibly win. The Conservative Party, headed up by Rishi Sunak, I think his name is, and the Labour Party, who's headed up by Sir Keir Starmer. And I could only watch about 15 minutes of it, but it's unbelievably bad. I mean, it's like the Eurovision Song Contest on acid or something. They were on some sort of platform in wherever it was, up north somewhere, Widnes, Wigan, somewhere, in some hall, and it's covered in all these lights, and they're all far too much makeup, and they're just making all these ridiculous gestures. And of course, not talking about anything that's going to make any difference. We're going to lower taxation. How are you going to do that? We're going to improve the economy. Yeah, how will you do that then? It's just, after you've listened to this stuff, not that I've paid too much attention to it for most of my life, but when you know it's been droning on in the background for 50 years and nothing of any real import ever changes with this stuff, you have to say to, why do people continue to do it? I guess it's just the momentum. Well, we've always done this sort of thing. And if I vote for someone you don't know, we might get lucky. Well, we do know you're not going to get lucky. What's that phrase? It doesn't matter which party you vote for. The problem is the government always gets in because it never leaves. It's always there. Anyway, Eric, who are you going to be voting for?
Well, actually, as you know, I live in my own country, which is Fockham Hall.
Yes.
And the Prime Minister at the moment is a cat called Roger, and his surname is Ring. And apparently he likes to be called that name because apparently lots of diplomats around the world like Rogering the cat, you see. So
yes.
There's nothing rude there, is there? I mean,
no,
Eric,
I
can't think why.
It's the sort of low-grade smutty humour I've come to expect from you types out there in Fockham Hall. Yes, absolutely.
Smutty? Never.
Is Fockham Hall going to declare war on England? Because, I'd be hard-pressed to know which side to take. You ought to think about that.
Why not?
You might as well.
Yeah, we could do, couldn't we? Yes. Well, let's face it, we've got a minister. Everybody that comes onto the show, you see, is given a Ponzi title. And I didn't give you a Ponzi title when you came on last Sunday. So you've got to think of a Ponzi title for yourself.
I was sulking about that for days afterwards. I didn't want to say anything because it's not very manly. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah. It's a Ponzi title's needed.
I have a question.
Yes, Paul. A question from America. Hello.
I have a question for Eric. Would you be Would you be amenable to my mirror streaming Fuckham Hall? Because
Oh yes,
I'm toying
please.
around with launching a I, I'm toying around with launching a radio station called Bloody Hell Radio, and I think
Excellent,
Fuckham Hall would be a
excellent.
perfect
By
fit.
the way, would you mind being? Would you like to be a mission or an embassy of Fockham Hall? You see, because you can't be a citizen of Fockham Hall, but you can be an individual because everyone's an individual. You see, so in America, you can declare a border around where you live and call that Fockham Hall, which is an independent sort of state, I suppose. And for example, we've got someone up in Norfolk, and he calls his mission In Chance. You see, Norfolk in Chance, and he actually bringing Fockham civilization to the primitive people of Norfolk that still wear masks and queue up to get, Williams toxic arm brew, that type of thing. You see, I haven't said anything rude there, have I? I don't know what people would laugh.
No, it's good. I like this,
don't get
Eric.
it.
I like it. I think it's good. By the way, Eric, we are going to have to pull your Monday night show onto Radio Soapbox at some point, so we'll talk about that later on.
Okay.
We'll get the
you.
technicals. Well, no, it's right. It's a couple of hours. What do you go 8 till 10 on a Mondays, don't you? 8 p.m. to 10 p.m.
That's
on a
right.
Monday?
Yes, 8 till
Cool.
10. Yes, in between the smut and filth, there's some very interesting guests I have on there. That's if they
Yes.
can stand the smut and the filth.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I suppose it's after 8 o'clock. I don't know what that means, or after
Yeah.
9 o'clock. But yeah, no, that's the thing is, of course, as we're pretty well aware here, the history or the predominant communicators in alternative internet radio are stateside. But we are going to have to try and catch up to some degree. There's quite a lot of good podcasts over here. If we can contact those guys and maybe coax them to sort of do live recordings at set times, because I think radio, this sort of stuff works best when it's live, when it's a mess. It's better. The messier it gets, the kind of more, it's just a bit more attractive because I don't know quite where things are going to go, and it's best. And I found the more I've done this, the less I've planned it, the worse the show's got. No, the better it is. It's actually, you just need a few sort of points. We're all very ancient now, so we can talk about anything. Well, not anything, but quite a few things, and keep it on track, really.
Trouble is, Paul, is that if you get a loony on the show, guest, that
God.
makes it even more fun.
Why have you got? Do you
If
have? Do you get loonies on your show? Is that what you do? I don't know.
I have done in the past, yes.
Oh,
I've had
right.
a couple which won't come on again, but that was best by sheer accident. They seem quite all normal.
Yes.
And then when they come on the show, they become a bit loony.
Maybe it's microphone fever. Paul, have you ever experienced anything like that? So people get behind a mic and they just go mad.
Absolutely.
Do they?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I want that to
Either
happen,
they
I
turn
think.
into a raving lunatic,
Yeah.
or the ego comes out and they just become absolute monsters, divas, everything else.
Do they?
You give them a microphone, and if they have any ego in them at all, it will just explode literally before your eyes.
Yeah.
It's actually quite scary. I actually had a network, Global Voice Network. I had someone try and seize that network from me. She's going, well, the people listen to me because they don't like listening to you. So I think I'll just take it. I'm going, all right. The only reason you're on Global Voice Radio is I allow you to be there. Tell you what, no more. Bye-bye. See ya.
Yeah, good comment here in the chat from Exo. He's saying there's more streams now than the Lake District these days. Now, that might be lost on you, Paul, but the Lake District is the wettest part of England. And England's pretty wet all over, but the Lake District is super wet. It's up in the northwest of England, and after the weather's come over from your side of the pond and dumped a huge amount of rain on Ireland, there's still tons left, and it goes into the Lake District, which is a beautiful part of the world, as Wordsworth testified to by writing his poetry about fladderdills and things like this. It really is. But there's streams aplenty. I think, Exo, it's a good comment. The idea is to try and see if we can just coordinate a few things to get it to work. It's difficult to just sort of get things to blend in, but hopefully the idea would be that you you switch it on and you're always thinking, that's kind of my crowd. I mean, not all shows are going to be your crowd. Not all shows are my crowd either. You know, we differ on certain things. It's the joys of always disputing with everybody. But if we can get a little groove going, I think we could be okay. There's lots of old music that I quite like to play. I like old swing music, and you don't get into much trouble because it's kind of creating an atmosphere. And I was thinking, am I just being nostalgic? And I thought, yeah. And is that a bad thing? I thought, no. I don't think it is a bad thing now. I don't really view it as nostalgia, actually, although it would be thought of as that, rightly so. But there's a comment there's a clip I got from Marshall McLuhan, that Canadian chap who made such amazing observations back in the 60s and 70s about mass communication. And he was saying that in the electronic age, nostalgia comes back because people lose their kind of rootedness or connectedness. So nostalgia, looking back to the past, comes around. However, I'm going to say that I think this is a bit different, because I don't think this is about nostalgia. I think this is about a way of life that we know has been artificially taken from us, or is in the process of being removed through very sophisticated psychological mass media programming and all this other crap that they're doing. A few of us, most of the crowd here and people can see this. The vast majority as yet can't see it, but it's coming into view for them, because there's some very harsh lessons. So I think harking back to the past is not a bad thing, because, as I've said here before, my focal point really is I'm interested in the restoration of, in my case, the British family. If I was an American, I'd be interested in the restoration of the American family. And I mean literally men and women having children and raising them, because unless that happens, I have no idea why I'm doing any of this. None of it makes any difference at all, because there won't be anybody around to even assess whether we did a good job, whether we did a bad job, to criticize us or ignore us. There'll be no one there to pay attention to anything that we think we might have contributed, which we may not. I don't know, but we're having a go, aren't we? And I think that's the key thing. So every policy that these idiots are that's going to tumble out of what passes for their mouths over the next few weeks in the run-up to this farce, right? Not one of them will be actually focused on the key points about the restoration of the health of, in my case, my people. And this is all that counts. I'm not against other people, but as I've mentioned here before, it's a real estate problem. Location, location, location. We've got the wrong people in the wrong place saying the wrong things to the wrong crowd at the wrong time. Other than that, they're spot on. Right, it's a complete irrelevant farce. What they're doing is irrelevant, but they're able to force it upon us because of their control of the media, pounding people 24/7 with this bilge. And I'll get off the soapbox now. Do you want to get on it, Paul? It's vacant.
Oh yeah. Well, you were talking about politics. You were talking about real estate, and I just absolutely have to go here. I mean, you guys have the Lakes District. It's beautiful, but it's rather mucky. Well, the closest thing that the United States has to the Lakes District is Washington, D.C. I mean, it started out as a swamp. And they filled it in, and people there have been all wet ever since. So that's the closest thing we can come to it.
Yeah, there's no, it's fine. It's
obviously more amusing to me than else, but it's okay.
Well, I guess it's all a matter of historical perspectives with these things and sort of tapping into stuff. I guess we're going to use a lot of UK cultural references here, so it's very game of you to be in and amongst us, Paul, actually, to be quite honest. But then I've spent quite a bit of time in American groups, and I quite like it. It's good because it's whether we're thinkers. That's all it's about. You know, are people asking questions? And if we're doing that, we're still in with a good shout with all of this kind of stuff. I really think we are. So... Anyway, I've mentioned here before, and hopefully for next week, I didn't get time over the last few days to do this. I want to write a political speech for the political party that doesn't exist, but that you want to. And I've got to obviously be guarded about how far I go with it, for sensible reasons, because I'd like to come back the following week, and say some more. But I think there may be ways of doing this. These topics need to be addressed. They're inside everybody in Britain. These topics that are there, that are more than under the skin with some of us, are existent in all people, but they haven't got the confidence or maybe the standing to know how to talk about them, or or they can't take the criticism that's going to be hurled at them if they address what are considered to be politically incorrect topics. But if we don't do this, if you can't talk about the disease that you know your nation's got, how are you supposed to cure it? You cannot do that. So it has to be talked about, and we have to find a way, and there is a way, I think, of talking about these things decently and honourably and with a very positive outcome, because as I've mentioned here before, when white people, when English people start talking about their own self-interest, we are racists. Okay, fair enough. Boo-hoo, I'm crying a lot. It's really important. But in fact, the real racists, and this is a point worth repeating, are the globalists. They're out to destroy all races. They want to destroy the lot, while pretending that any race that stands up for itself is a racist group of people because they don't want to get on with other people. It's complete idiocy. I do want to get on with other people, and the truth is that people know where their ancient cultural homelands are, and the vast majority of us, 99.9%, are happiest there, have the greatest opportunities there because we're on the same wavelength, literally, with our own people, like different types of music. It harmonizes, it doesn't become a discord, and when you transplant groups from any place to any other place and put them on the same bit of real estate, discord is on its way. It's unavoidable, and that's why it's been organized like this after we had lost World War II. Because after we lost World War II, this process began almost in earnest to begin this in. And of course, white people are very nice. They go, well, we've got to help everybody. Fine, but not this way. Not at the expense of the loss of the livelihoods and decency of the lives of our children, if we're going to have any. And of course, you see all these arguments, I think, that have come out. I can't get off the soapbox, Paul. I'm stuck on it. You can't see all these arguments that are coming out are all about things that don't count because they're not about the essential problem. Oh, we're going to adjust taxation. Shut up. Be quiet, you imbecile, is what I want to say to them. Shut up. What are you going to do about the bank? You're going to sort out the bank? You sort out the bank, right? Your job is to sort out the bank without getting killed. They won't be able to do that. But we've got to address it. People need to be aware. But there's no point voting because the government always gets in, and it's really not the government, it's the bankers behind the government. Yes, good, that's a start. And the people that run the bank don't want to give up control of the bank. No, they don't. So how do we get them to give up control? Well, we need to get their names. First of all, they need to be publicized. We need to know who these people are, and they need to, and of course, you begin that process, and then you get bumped off because they don't want that either. But we've got to find a way. We're literally in a war, not of our own making, but because they are waging it upon us, and it's that thing. No one likes it, no one wants it. We can't even work out why they would do this, but they're not well. These people. The idea of a war with Russia or with anybody at this scale is so imbecile. There's literally no reason to do it. I mean, for the last 20 years, they've been saying, look, we've invented the computer, we've got internet, everything's so much more efficient, yet very little of that efficiency comes down to normal people and affects their way of life. Why are people working so much? I've mentioned here before, back in the Middle Ages here in this country, people worked 14 weeks a year and then just danced in the fields. Mm-hmm. It was called Merry England because people had their priorities right. It wasn't about feeding a power elite with more and more money. But unfortunately, that's the conditions that we've been living under for a long time. Anyway, hey-ho, I'll get off the soapbox now. What time are we at? We've got about 8 minutes to go, really. Well, not really. We actually do. It's just gone 21:52 here in the UK. You listen to Paul English Live. A bit late for this. Here on WBN 324. I'll be back again same time next week. Paul, Eric, anything you'd like to add? I'll just go off and have a very large gin.
Thanks, Paul, for letting me on. It really is appreciated because my dad's probably looking down now and saying thanks as well because you've allowed me, given me a voice this evening, and I'm really thank you very much. This is terrific, and that's it basically. And thank you everybody that's bought Dad's book and also listened to the video that I put up with my dad speaking. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll put the link in on this video description afterwards.
Thanks,
Eric.
Thanks,
so we'll put it here, and I'll put the link to your book on Amazon. I'm pretty bad at all that sort of stuff. I really need a Man Friday, or is it a Girl Thursday. I don't know what you need, but it's something like that to sort of do all this gubbins. There's so many things to do, and so much gin to drink after the show as well, so we don't want to sort of miss out on that. But I'll get those in, and you're welcome back at any time. I mean,
much appreciated.
It's not every day that it's the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and of course we've picked it to try and illustrate rightly these other points. Your father's personal story is of great value, I think. It really is. I caught a little bit of the interview that you sent me earlier today, and I'll go through the rest of it. It's only about half an hour with him, and it just brings it home. And maybe there's nothing new in what we're saying. I guess that's true to some degree, but it needs to be repeated. I think it does need to be repeated, and with a view that we find a way to organise ourselves. I mean, do we form a political party? I've never felt that would work at all. But not in terms of actually acquiring actual power under the established political system, but in terms of maybe drawing a crowd to act as fifth column, or whatever they would call you. That could be useful. But then you see these rallies that they organise, like they had one the other day, and you just look at it and you go, what is going on? People are still a bit wet, in my view, about really getting to the bottom of it. They're not old-fashioned enough. And old-fashioned, we need to make it the new fashion. It's going to be hip to be square. It really is. I really think it is. To be traditional is going to be the new cool, and we've got to sort of make it, because it is, without a doubt, because we survive on that kind of stuff, or thrive on it. And it's been great having you, Eric. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you
Paul,
very much. Thank you.
Hang around. We haven't finished just yet. We've got a couple of minutes to go. Paul, any famous last words from the other side of the ponds, or even infamous ones?
Well, I vote for a Girl Thursday. Just, I can't help it. And a lot of these topics they've been talked about, but a lot of them have been largely ignored. And the facts, the true facts, the actual accounts of how things really were have been, for all intents and purposes, ignored. I mean, you look at Europa, you look at the Hellstorm, you contrast that with what they've been teaching in the schools and what's been written in the history books, because there is a maxim of law. I don't even know if it's a maxim of law, but it's a truism. The victor gets to write the story. The winners write the history books. And that's exactly what has happened globally. The globalists have manipulated societies and peoples into wars, famines, into situations that only served the globalists financially. And then afterward, they scrubbed the accurate accounts and they wrote the stories in the history books, the encyclopedias, and the rest is history. Let's go back to actually talking about what really happened, not what they say happened. And thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. I absolutely enjoy the heck out of being here.
That's great. It's wonderful having you here. It's really
long
good.
live Soapbox Radio.
Yeah. Radio Soapbox even. Shelley was doing a show last night. She goes, what is it? Box Radio Soap? I'm going, oh, bloody hell. I don't know what it is. So anyway, get some soap. If you get it wrong, I'll anybody that gets the name wrong, we'll wash your mouth out with soap. We're going to have to do that or something. So, quick shout out to everybody on the Rumble chat. Great having you along for the ride, as always. Thanks, Aunt Sally, for your encouraging comments. I just want to say something else. Seeing your name, Aunt Sally, has reminded me of something. Sam Melia, who's been really getting it in the neck, there's been a positive development. He got moved to Hull prison. This is the guy that put stickers up saying it's okay to be white. And his wife, Laura Towler, fantastic woman. They've got 2 children. He's been denied access to his children. A lot of this has been reversed, but it's part of them manipulating and running around. I haven't done anything direct on that. I probably need to address it in the next few weeks in the run-up to our wonderful, embarrassing, whatever it is that's coming up, that kind of stuff. So we will cover that in a little bit more detail. But anybody that's been following Sam Melia's situation, just look out for that piece of news, which is a good one. You've been listening to I've always wanted to say that, so I just did. You've been listening to Paul English Live here on WBN 324. We've also been going out over Radio Soapbox. We're also on, quite a few other networks as well, but I can't remember them all. We're on Rumble and blah, 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 blah. If you want a full list, go to paulenglishllive.com. We'll be back next week with another installment in the Great British General Election run-up shows, which will be just a lot of this sort of stuff. But no, we will see. Let's see if I can get that speech knocked out. We can do a little theatrical piece about politics. It might work. Who knows? Yeah, could be fun. You could heckle me as a crowd, Eric. That would be great. Fantastic.
Yes, why not?
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, brilliant. We're returning you back to, I don't know what's coming up after me on WBN, but I'm sure it's jolly good. Thanks to them and to everybody else. We'll be back here next week. Bye for now, everybody. Bye-bye. And we're off air on the radio. We're not on the radio anymore, although I think we're probably still on we're going to be on something, actually, but we're not on the radio. There's something that I forgot to do. I always forget to do a thing. So we're not on WBN anymore, but we're still on, or should still be on Radio Soapbox, although things might have just changed a little bit. They did. Let me just go back to that. There we go. And this is the post show, if we're going to have one. Cool. I'm actually getting quite good at all this, but you wouldn't believe the amount of buttons I've got to press. Actually, Paul, you would, wouldn't you? You'd believe the amount of buttons I've got to press, I'm sure. Oh, he's gone.
All right. Well,
everybody's left me.
This has been Paul English Live on Global Voice Radio Network. For more information, for all the links to where you can hear the show and all that stuff, go to paulenglishllive.com. paulenglishllive.com. Thanks. I'm Paul from Global Voice Network, and that's it for this episode of PEL. Bye now. Forward moving and focused on freedom. You're listening to the Global Voice Radio Network.
It's great. I'm on so many networks now. Wonderful.
It's
really
brilliant,
good
isn't
stuff.
it?
Yeah.
Really brilliant.
It's really good.
And,
this is how it all works. We're all chivvying in, so we're going to have to get you on here, Eric, because I'll be tuning in. Yeah, me and Paul are going to get you.
We're on there, maybe half an hour ago, talking about veterans and what have you. Being able to teach people. I was going to say, quit talking about me, Paul.
Yeah, no kidding. Exactly. All right, I got a phone call. I'm ducking out. I'll be back in a minute, okay?
Okay, that's fine. Well, we're probably not going to go on too long. It's just a 5 or 10 minute wrap up here, sort of post show, Eric.
That's nice.
But yeah, we'll
I like this.
Yeah, no, this is okay. Yeah, we're kind of. It's like you can be even more rude. I don't know if I'm embracing myself.
I can say titties and bum and things like that.
No, you can't. You can't say that. We're on Rumble.
I can't say titties and
no,
bum.
you can't.
No, I won't say that then. No. But it's funny because if I go, I'm on YouTube every Monday. And you've got to watch everything you say on there because the censorship is unbelievable.
Well, it's a silly place. We're not bothered about that. It's a very silly place. I mean, if it can be used to promote things, somebody just written in with that voice that came in. Is that Barry White? It could have been, couldn't it? No, I think it's a connection of Paul's. So I don't know if you know what happens here technically. It's a right old sort of, I don't know. It's like multiple parties. Paul hooks into this show and it goes out to another group on Global Voice Network. So there's Global Voice Network, and there's Freefall Radio South Africa. There's WBN 324. We've now got Radio Soapbox. We're on Rumble. I went out on D-Live, but there's no audience there. But D-Live is like a backup channel in case Rumble suddenly sort of send me a letter and go, we don't like you anymore. Go and jump off a cliff, or whatever they may say. Not that I think they should. I think this is a pretty general sort of show. It's been designed that way. As I've said before, if we were to meet in a pub and we want to really go at it hammer and tongs, count me in, but you'd have to make sure that there are no agents there and snitch, that kind of stuff. It's just ridiculous. Apart from which, I think we can achieve a great deal by just trying to be taking a more gentle approach. I sound awfully wet when I say that, don't I? But I've been through it myself personally. Yeah, I just think there is.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I've been accused of almost everything under the sun. And what I do, someone accused me of anything, I just took it as a compliment. Oh, thank you so much,
Yes.
and deliberately misinterpret what they're saying.
Yeah,
They say, and that way it throws them. They say, "You're racist." You think I'm athletic? Oh, thank you very much. What a compliment.
yes.
I do used to do a lot of running. Yes, I just go completely, just throw them off. They don't expect it, and just everything they try to be insulting with you with, you just accept it as a compliment.
Yeah.
And you look at their face, and they're sort of, huh? They're floored. But I think this idea that you got, Paul, is a good one, because you can't go on ranting. You just get closed down everywhere.
Well, my observation, Eric, would be that if that approach was generating an ever increasing sort of audience and sense of energy, then we should all do it. But I don't see. This is just me. It's not my style anyway. I can't really do that. I don't want to do it. The guideline really, even though we have a few fruity words, seriously, this is my guideline. If my mum's no longer alive, but I know what she was like because, she was my mum. And if my mum heard something and didn't on this show and she didn't like it, and I know what it is, then it's not, I don't want it. That's the guide for me. It's really important to me that those old values are restored because they're good. They're not corny. They're not daft. They're actually solid. They're the glue that really does bind us together. And there's a yearning for it that is completely natural. And of course, everywhere you look in the realms of advertising and news, the direction of the stories is going, you can have whatever, just be alone, live your life alone, be a cat lady, do this, that, and the other. You don't need kids, all this kind of stuff. You do. You absolutely need them. And those that don't want them, I don't want to live with them. It's as simple as that. Let me tell, there was something happened to me the other day. I was in fits with this. I hadn't had this sort of moment for ages. I had to go shopping, as you do. You probably have to. I have to go shopping, so I go to the shops, you see, and buy things to eat them later on in the day. And so I go down to this supermarket, which I go to maybe twice a week, tops, to do a bigger shop. And I get in there, and there's a mum. She's quite nice. But I could see she wasn't in the best of mood. She was busy buying things. And she had two young lads with her. One was her son, and the other one was obviously his best mate from school. It's about 4:00 in the afternoon, so they'd come out of school. And these lads were just the supermarket. They would be about 8 or 9 years of age, I reckon, something like that. So like these eager imps, and they were giggling like mad. And the whole store to them was just like a big toy shop. They were playing with cheese and bacon and everything. And so I don't know why I found this so funny, but I did, because it reminded me, you might remember what you were like when you were young, Don't touch that, Eric, right? Paul, put that down. I used to get this all the time. They were in hysterics, these lads. And she couldn't, there was this complete gap between her mood and theirs. She was being quite severe with them. And the more severe she was with them, the more they ran off quickly and did something else. And I found it, I had to walk around the corner because I couldn't stop laughing. And I thought, this is just the best free entertainment ever. I wanted them to sort of go around and knock everything over. I just thought it was great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I thought, oh, this is England. This is what I expect. I expect this. This is what I want. I want naughty schoolboys touching bananas and thinking it's the craziest thing they ever did. It was such innocent fun. It really was. And it was delightful because of it. So, great little moment,
I think that the way we're going to get back at these psychos in power is to laugh at them, because they don't have a sense of humour. And that is our greatest weapon. And they've destroyed our humour. I mean, I love innuendo. Where it's
really? You like innuendo, do you, Eric? I wouldn't have noticed that.
I don't know. You see, that is the skill of humour, because it can be thought of in any way. And this is what gets me. We've lost our humour. They've destroyed our humour, and that's the reason why they don't like being laughed at, because it was humour that got Ceausescu down, wasn't it? Because Ceausescu stood on his balcony and
I've got to disagree with you. I don't think we have lost our humour. I think it's there. I think we've just been preoccupied, many of us, rightly as well, with the urgency of our situation. It tends to make you a bit more sober-minded than you would like. But I don't think it's gone at all. And they don't like to be mocked. And I think we are, I'm going to brag, but I think we're the world champions at that. I think it's we're in a different league because it's very subtle. It's really, I think it's a subtle thing. And my mum, I've said this before, my mum used to say to people, she said, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have joined. You know, basically, in English life, you're being verbally abused by the people that love you the most, aren't you? Don't you think? It's often the case that your mates are the ones that are going to wind you up, put you off, and you know you're in then. Right, you know you're in. So it's part of it. I just want to go back to something serious here as well, but it's a good note as well. Aunt Sally writes, by the way, she's talking about Sam, because I just mentioned him a few moments ago, and this good series of developments that have taken place for him. She says, by the way, Sam Melia is one of the nicest, kindest men I've ever met. He certainly comes across that way, Aunt Sally, in the few video clips I've seen of him. Looks like a great guy. And, of course, he comes from Leeds. So what could possibly go wrong, you know? Even though I'm not up there as often as I want to be. So sorry about that, Eric. I know you Essex guys are big into Essex, but we Yorkshire guys bang on about Yorkshire all the time as well. So sometimes it's just one of these sad little things. I should, yeah. What's that?
I'm from Fockham Hall. You remember? I've got my own country. So
you've got your own kingdom, haven't you? Yeah, you've got your own country.
Right,
you've got you're a state. Are you a mini state within a state? You're the equivalent of the city of London, aren't you? But in your neck of the woods, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the right state as well. Because I even got my own. You've seen the Fock Bobs, haven't you? That's my own currency, Fock Bobs. So you know, and why not? I mean, when you think about it, what you were saying about that Austrian place that had their own currency, bloody brilliant, isn't it? I mean, what is currency? It's a means of exchange.
Yeah. Listen, I've done so many crazy things, Eric. I actually have built and run currency systems on the ground here in the UK and got my ass kicked so bad for it. And that's what introduced me to the whole monetary thing. I just thought we could just make our own money up. You can, actually, but they don't want you to do it because they want to control the whole thing. It's a monopoly. You're not supposed to know about that. So you should. Yeah, we just get Fock Bobs or whatever you want to. It doesn't matter if we get enough people using a thing. But of course, you and I are kind of, and most of the audience here, certainly the ones on Rumble that are still with us, and it's a goodly audience. Fantastic. Thanks for hanging around, guys and gals. People outside of this sort of space don't really know what you're talking about. But the results with these things can be spectacular, but it works both ways. Like I've mentioned before, every nation that's pushed in that direction achieves a temporary success until it is bombed, literally.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But, with Fockham Hall, you see, if you're short of a few bob, you can download your own Fock Bobs. So then you won't be hard up, will you? I mean, that's what the Bank of England does, isn't it?
You're a right Essex wheeler dealer. I can see this. You're not a wide boy from Essex. What's going on? Hey, bloody hell! Back to the chat here. Great. Another comment from Aunt Sally. She says, this is just a follow-on from my little story about those lads in the supermarket. And you've sparked a thought off with me, Aunt Sally, with this one. But let me read out her comment, Eric. She says, when my grandson was little, I used to let him run amok with the shoe selection in New Look. I think New Look was a shoe chain, right? He would de-pair all the shoes. The shop assistants didn't mind as they were bored anyway. That was really good. You've sparked off something with me. When we used to come home from school, which we didn't want to because we loved school so much, you know. When we would come home from school, we would they put up a shopping centre in this little part of Leeds where I lived on the east side called an Arndale Centre. It was actually designed by a guy called Poulsen, a Bent architect. There was a big deal about him in the 70s.
Poulsen, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
remember him?
Poulsen, yeah. Yes, I do remember him. And he was the one. There was a film loosely about him, wasn't there?
Yeah, The Art of the Backhander. He was just amazing. World champion backhander, Poulsen, and his architectural practice. Yeah, I'll do that. Here's a few bob, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he designed one of these modern shopping things, which is a bit exotic for the little place that we lived in, but everybody was very impressed, and they had a Wimpy in it, so you could get a burger there in 1973 or something. It was we thought we'd come of age. We thought, hey, we're going up in the world. Look at this, I can get a burger from Wimpy. But they had shoe shops in there, and there was when you came out of it, there was a rise. You know, you went through the main arcade, and then to come out of the other, you had to sort of go up. It was just a slope for about 30 yards or so. And there was a shoe shop on this slope, and they would have shoes on the shoe rack outside to tempt you in, to buy the latest Clarks. You remember Clarks, brand of shoes
Yes,
in the
I know
70s?
Clarks, yes.
Yeah, and Doc Martens, those were all the shoes. Doc Martens, of course, are still around, and magnificent footwear. You can't beat them. I've still got a pair now to this day. Brilliant stuff.
Really? What about monkey boots?
Oh no, I didn't
Remember
like all
monkey
that
boots?
stuff. I was very conservative even then, Eric. I bought the shoes. I never bought the boots. Didn't like them. Thought, what's all that lace stuff? I can't be bothered lacing that up. I just bought a pair of shoes. But anyway, they'd have all these shoes out on these metal racks that were held together with nuts and bolts, right? And there was a seat opposite. And what would happen, there was a guy in our group, and he would go and pretend to be looking at the shoes for a long time. But what he was actually doing was taking all the nuts and bolts out of the rack, right? They're all taken out. This is so childish, what I'm telling you, right? They were all taken, so that the whole frame on this slope, right? The whole frame on this slope was held together by balance alone. Then we would go and sit down and just wait. And after a few minutes, someone would come along and touch it. This happened 2 or 3 times. It was enough, They would touch it. The whole thing would collapse and the shoes would just tumble down about 5 yards down this little slope. My, how we laughed. Hey, that's how you get. That's fun for you. Yeah, of course I don't know what it is these days, but yeah, that was great. Yeah, I liked that a lot. It was really good fun.
Well, especially all the restrictions and what we've got now. I mean, it's just like boiling the frog. They're just turning the heat up very, very slowly, and people are not noticing it. I actually dropped my neighbour off at a hospital the other day, last Monday. I've never been to a place like it. It's absolutely satanic. Loads of signs everywhere telling you where you can't park, what you can't do. But what they don't do is have signs telling you where to pick someone up. When I say picking someone up, I mean in the, should I say, picking up a patient sort of situation. But it's a horrible place. And you realise it's actually organised and run by psychopaths. It's obvious it is. It's awful. But no, I like that with the shoe shirt. So I just read that with the shoe.
It's very childish. We did a lot. There were just a lot of childish things that you did back then, and you thought you were so. It was so, but it just was funny, and people would get slightly outraged. I had a friend. This is another stupid story, right? I don't know if I've told this one before. It's just a silly one. He, we're talking about World War II. So, those World War II films where you often see people on fire jumping out of buildings, or at least that's the first time those sorts of things, right? Well, he loved this. He thought this was great. He loved it so much he wanted to be on fire and jump out of a building. I'm quite serious, right? So, there used to be a piece of clothing in the 1970s called the snorkel parka. Do you remember those things? Parkas were the big. Yeah, everybody wanted a parka, right?
That's it.
And
for your moped.
Yeah, so that's right. If you had a moped and all that. So what he would do is he would get his parka, because he had one, of course, we all had parkas, and he would get a couple of pairs of gloves and put them on his, I think probably his right arm or something. And then he would get, this is in the same shopping centre, right? This is in the same shopping centre. So it's quite busy at this time. And there were little alleyways off on either side. So you could sort of exit the main sort of shopping mall. Of course, I don't think we even used that word back then. We weren't sophisticated enough. But he would go into the alley and he would impregnate one of his arms with Ronson lighter fluid. You may remember Ronson lighter fluid, highly flammable, and then set fire to his arm and run across the shopping centre with his arm on fire like he was some sort of extra in some sort of stunt film. And it always managed to get a gasp of, bloody hell's that idiot? So it's quite funny. One woman got quite outraged one day and said, "Stop setting fire to that boy," which we thought, well, that was the funniest thing that ever happened. It was just the greatest thing that anybody could have ever said. Well, stop setting fire to that boy. But he sets fire to himself. Yeah, he liked setting fire to himself. It was fun.
Well, it's as a chap that I used to work with that was brought up near Hyde Park Barracks, and he said there's no shortage of horse manure. Mm-hmm. And what they used to do as kids is fill a brown paper bag with horse manure and stick it on the front step of someone's house and ring the doorbell and then hide behind a bush and 9 times out of 10, and then catch light to the brown paper bag, you see.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, someone will come to the door barefooted or with the slippers on and then put the fire out with their feet.
We are really a couple of old gits. I'm telling you, this is desperately sad what we're saying. It's really, I know that too. Holy moly, I know that. Yeah.
But kids used to be like that.
It did. We did. Yeah, we did.
What I used to do.
Yeah, I know.
Pegs.
Do they still have that thing over here? You know, there's Halloween, which we never paid any attention to at all as kids. It was just a complete joke, right? I mean, it's not important at all. It's just stupid. And all I was bothered about was that we used to have mushy peas probably on Halloween, and that was quite good because I'm a northerner. I just eat peas, right? So I liked it. Yeah. So there was that good. And then there was obviously bonfire night a few days later on November the 5th. But we had this tradition, or maybe the whole country had it, I don't know, on November the 4th, the night before bonfire night was called Mischief Night. Did you have that?
No, I've never heard of that. No.
Oh, you'd have loved it up north, Eric. It were grand.
Yeah.
Mischief Night. And of course, the older people got doing mischief, the worse the mischief got. What you've just described was a stock in trade on Mischief Night. People would do things like, so they would put dog filth in a bag and set fire to it. Right. The idea was to find the foulest one you could, and then you'd sit. There was that, and then there was putting washing up liquid all over people's door handles, which was quite fun. It's just really crass.
What about? How can I put this? No, I can't say gobbing. Shall we say spitting? Yes.
You've said it now.
Pedestrian, you know the pedestrian bridges that go across roads.
Yeah.
And what you did, you got a score of 10 if you got an open top convertible. It used to flop off the top of the bridges. But vile little children. You know? Of course, I wouldn't do such a thing because I was a goody. You see, I wouldn't do it.
No, I believe you, Eric.
Yes. But again, that seems to have gone in many ways. I don't know. It's a strange sort of thing, you know. But
well, there's been I know that my parents spoke like this about the lost sort of innocence of the playful things they did in their youth. And they thought that everything was getting out of hand. And I guess it was. And now I think it's got further out of hand. And maybe every generation grows up being quite lively when they're young. And then when you get to this age, you look back and you go, oh, this is really a little bit irritating, isn't it? You know, I mean, there is that sort of stuffiness that you get older because you're looking at things through a certain... It wasn't always brilliant or anything. But I mean, I think there was more... I suppose the element I would address is that there seemed to be more of an innocence. I suppose, you know, cynics would say, yes, stupidity. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But it did seem like a more innocent time. The fun was slightly more innocent. And that sort of laughter that I experienced the other day watching these two lads just horse around and be naughty, right? I love that more than... It's funnier than anything else. It's like a delight in... They were so delighting in life. That's what they were doing, right? It was like everything was brand new to them. And it's just absolutely infectious. That's why children, I think, they're not always great, but they are basically great because we were all children and we wouldn't have been having this conversation if you and I hadn't been children at some point. And so children are absolutely amazing and need to be almost, I don't mean spoilt the way they are, but they're not really being spoilt. They're being preyed upon by people who say we're helping them. What's that thing? The deadliest sentence you can ever hear? We're from the government and we're here to help. Oh.
Yes. That was a Ronald Reagan one as well that he came out with.
Well, he was right about many things. Yeah, he was right, wasn't he? He was accurate.
Some of these things he came out with. I think it's like most of these people, they have good intentions, but they're compromised. It's like you said about Churchill. He was okay up until about, 1920-something? And then he suddenly went doolally.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think he was a bit of a bad one at military college anyway. As I've said, there's that thing, I think it's Colonel Thurgood. It's called That Bastard Churchill. It's a pamphlet. I've got it somewhere kicking around on my bookshelves. I read it years ago. It's only about 16, 20 pages long. He talks about him, not good. But you see, he was treated
that,
badly by his parents. He was ignored. They were like emotional basket cases by the time they're 8. They treat their offspring so bad. There was a comment actually here in the chat a little bit earlier on. I can't see it to view, but it was just about the type of people that are in charge. I think it was Ether that had written the comment, and that we are 2 different species, and we may as well be. Yeah, I agree with that. There's something unhinged. We can't relate to what they think is important. You just go, what? I mean, all this thing about sort of dressing up with medals and plumes and all this sort of military pomp and all that. You go, what are you on about, mate? It's just a bloody fight and people get killed. I mean, but no, I'm Colonel this. Although I quite like those characters as well. I find it difficult not, because I like the way they talk. I like that sort of British eccentric. Hello, I'm Colonel. I love all that. I absolutely love it,
Well, actually, I've told quite a few people this. I'm writing a book at the moment about bovine excrement, because when you think about it, when you find a spelling for a word, you look at a dictionary. You got thesaurus for other, finding other things, but there's no dictionary on bovine excrement, is there? So, for example, you've heard of a mock chew. Have you heard of a mock chew? These people make out they're chewing and they're sort of all right, Jack, and they're like this. Mainly Southerners, I found. I like that. Yeah. It's that sort of, I've got a faster car than you, you know what I mean? Because I'll go faster. That sort of attitude. And people, it's like, to me, when someone's BSing you, they're giving you a free performance, so you should act like an art critic and go, yes, and sort of suggest ideas to make it a better performance. So that what it is, it's an act, and that's what people do. They just act. And look at these politicians that go around; they're just actors. That's all they are.
They are.
And it's something
that's
I've always
exactly
wanted
right.
to do.
They're actors.
I've always wanted to fill a whoopee cushion with gravy and put it on one of their seats when they do these hustings. That would be very funny. Can you imagine
well, Eric, you're thinking along the same lines as Aunt Sally here, or very parallel. She just put another comment in here. This is dreadful, Aunt Sally. I can't believe you've even put this down in writing. She says, one prank, that's an interesting word. One prank we used to do was to completely cover the toilet pan with cling film. I don't think we need to go on. Thanks very much for that.
Well, I'll tell you what I used to do. My mother, she had this thing about pegs. She's always pegging washing out. I'm not washing out. So I used to.
Good. I like the sound of your mum. Women with pegs is a good thing. It works. It's a good combination. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I used to put pegs at the back of her dress. And she went shopping once and wondered why people are looking at her. She had these pegs around the bottom of her skirt.
Why am I laughing at
all these people and she still had to, I don't know what it is, people are all staring at me. I'm always wetting myself with laughter, and so, oh dear, really? Oh yeah, she should walk down the road. They've treated me really funny. I noticed this man staring at me. She's going.
It's because it's so childish. It's really funny. It is. The childish stuff's just the best. Sticking pegs all over a dress. Yeah, it is funny. I love all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's all right, little son. But no, the thing is, I had an older sister who was much older than me. So I not only get a clout round the ear hole from my mum, I get a clout round the ear hole from her as well. And this idea of the fairer sex, don't believe it. A right-hander from her, you really knew it. Gosh, take that. Oh yeah, so I had it sort of twice, But no, I think that there is, when you look at the comedy of the 70s and the 60s, it was in its heyday. It was brilliant, fantastic. You was sport for choice. But now, what passes itself as comedy? I mean, I don't have a telly, so I don't watch it. I don't know whether you have a telly or not, but I don't. I can't be bothered.
I do. We have a TV, and I watch. I have to have things that I have assigned as being my vegging out processes, and there's only really 2 that I've got. I watch a lot of tennis. Because I fell in love with tennis when I was a kid and started playing when I was 15 and thought I'd be good, not realising that I had to start playing when I was 5. But there weren't too many opportunities to play tennis where I lived in 1965. So that was part of it. But So I watch tennis a lot. I don't know what. I just do. And I get really wound up about it. My sons go, Dad, why do you get so into it? I'm going, well, if I'm going to spend some time, if I'm going to really waste my time, I'm going to invest some energy in rooting for one player or another because I like doing that. Also, I can come up with better insults that way if I keep working at it and getting very verbal. So there's that. And the other thing I watch is... I watch Formula One. I still don't even know why I do. I think it's because I started watching it when they first put it on when I was about 12 or something. They used to put these things on in black and white on the BBC edited highlights, and for some reason I just thought it was the most amazing thing, and that I would never ever get to do that, which of course I never did, and it's probably a good thing because it was pretty dangerous. There were no opportunities. They were exotic things, those sports. They were things that I'm not moaning about it. They were just things that I was never going to be part of that world. So they were like a very exotic sports, a bit like surfing in California when you used to look at that. I'm in Yorkshire, it's 1974, I'm 14, and you're looking at these surfing pictures and it's all sunny and everybody, and you just go, I'm looking out the window and it's just grey. It's grey and raining. I'm going, I think I like what's in this magazine better than what's outside of my window. How do I get there? And I'm going, well, it's never going to happen. But I guess I'm not alone in that. Lots of us have dreamt about certain things in certain ways. So I think you're right about I don't know about the comedy. I guess, the thing I caught the other day, and this, yet again, this is childish, innocent comedy. And for me personally, it lasts the longest. It doesn't seem to age much. Was Dad's Army, right?
Oh,
now,
brilliant. That's
genius. Yeah, now I didn't really like it too much when it was actually on. I think I was too busy with other things. It used to be on Saturday evenings. But on Radio 3 or Radio 4 a couple of months ago, because I was mucking about with the radio and listening to stuff, it came on about 6:30. It was an episode. I mean, it was made probably in the late 70s and 80s, I think, with most of the cast, apart from those that had obviously departed before then. And it was just fantastic because it's so childish. That's it's really very childish humour. It's about embarrassment and things going slightly wrong and everybody getting in a panic about it and all this. And the tensions, the class tensions between Wilson and Mannering and all these sorts of. It's wonderfully drawn and it's very. I think it represents a kind of England that that's maybe become a little bit mythical, but I think to a great degree used to exist. A kind of a genteel civility. There was a genteel civility, and I miss it. I felt it very much in the way that my mum and dad behaved and their generation, and there was something really rather... There was kind of an ongoing respect for everybody. Even people they didn't like, they would be respectful and get out of their way and stuff. But it wasn't as sort of, it wasn't as vicious as it is now.
People are very smart as well. I mean, people now are very scruffy. Extremely scruffy.
I don't even... I know. It's awful. I look at myself and go, why are you dressed like this? But then I go, well, I've got nowhere to go, and I love waistcoats, but I've only got the one. But I do. I keep saying, we should all be having waistcoats and pocket watches and dress like Victorian gentlemen and I should wax my moustache and stuff like that and, bark out orders. I mean, I do view us back in that period as being, as a race of people, absolutely at our peak. I can't think of it any in terms of the what comes across when you read things written by Chesterton and Belloc and all these other people during that period is the amount of completely crystal clear thinking that's going on. It's fabulous. I just absolutely love it. There's no sort of, let's equivocate about this. No, we know exactly what's going to work and let's do it. And things got done. It's brilliant. And I think as a people, we want to operate in that space again. Absolutely.
When you think about it, Meccano and things like you were brought up practical, and I can't understand impractical people because if something's broken, I'll repair it. That's the way I am. You're probably from that generation as well. If something's broken, you repair it. I do all my servicing on my car.
Yeah.
And I mean, people, and my car. I've got a classic car, and I do all the servicing on that. And I got, don't tell anybody, will you? Keep this to yourself. But I don't know how to tell you this, but I've got a smart car. And I mean, people ask me when I phone up for insurance, they say, excuse me, have you had a history of mental illness, sir? You've got a smart car. That type of thing,
Yeah.
But you've gone silent there. You're thinking, oh, bloody hell, he's got a smart car. Well, he's not a green member of the Green Party. He's not one of these, eco-loonies.
I don't think I would ever think that of you, Eric. Actually, I don't think that's really not the sort of first thing that ever springs to mind. There's people are writing about you. They're talking about you in the chat, right? They don't want to talk to you. They want to talk about you, and they're very wise to do that. Someone's what's this thing? Yeah, Exo writes, with a laugh like that, Eric would be a paid participant in Benny Hill audience recorded reruns. There you go. Oh, Benny Hill! Wow, Benny Hill is still toe curlingly awkward at times. It's brilliant. What's at him? That's so childish. Again, it's something about this sort of childish, innocent sort of. It's goofy. It is like schoolboy humor, but it really can work brilliantly well. There's some great comics. Dad's Army was full of archetypes. So yes, it was.
Spike Milligan. I was a Spike Milligan enthusiast. I thought he was a fruitcake. But that's we need more. You see, the thing is, we need more individualism.
There's a great poem by him. There's a great. Oh, it's not really a poem. It's so short. Cloud have holes where the rain comes in. The holes are small. The holes are small. That's why rain's thin. That's it.
It's logical, isn't it?
I love it. Absolutely love it. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Anyway, Paul, do you fancy coming on the old show again? I don't know what day you're free, because we could do a Rumble one if you want.
But not for a little while, Eric. I think what I'd like to do next, I want to get your show souped up, and let's get it on the soapbox, okay, and get you in, and then we do these things. Yeah, I think we should do that. I think if there's a way of keep on binding more people in at some kind of core energy, I'm very interested in that personally. I just think team is it. Even though I know it's really difficult with our people, because everybody, including me, is a bloody know-it-all, right? And we won't be told. No. And some of us, of course, can't be told because we actually do know too much, of course, and then that puts everybody's note. But you know what I mean? It can be tricky. It is like herding cats. It really is. But we're all going to have to be a bit thick-skinned. Yeah, we're in deep doo-doo here. Everybody knows it. I know we're having a good time now, and we should do, because I think it's good to just remind us that life is worth living and that there can be moments of jollity, in spite of the fact that we've got these maniacs running around trying to destroy everything that we love, and they never even asked. But then they don't ask about anything, do they? So, I think if we can build up a kind of ball of energy around a group in some kind of a way, and I don't really care what it's like, it doesn't have to be too structured. But there are a lot of people out there doing good stuff. And what I'm hoping we might be able to do is just find people and say, look, if you could do this technically there's a little technical thing we need people to do, which is basically supply us with an audio feed. And we can show people how to do that. And we say, look, if you can supply us with an audio feed from, say, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock or whenever it is, and just bolt this onto your show, we're away. And then we can sort of maybe build the radio up, because I don't know, maybe everybody's consuming this stuff on the video platforms. I can see that is what the people are doing. And I'm very thankful for Rumble, primarily because of the chat. It's the chat that I like on Rumble, because interacting, and maybe, I don't know, what it's like for the people in the chat. I mean, I've been in chat rooms, I didn't mean like that, but maybe people are more comfortable, find it easier to just type a few comments and for me and or anybody else to highlight them and pull them out. And maybe that's actually a good way to go. I know it's quite a common thing. I've not said anything unique or amazingly new or creative with that, but it does seem to work. It's good. And I like seeing the comments as they come in.
Don't I?
Yeah.
But I like to have the chat room as part of the show. But I think that radio is better because people are doing other things. They might actually record it and play it in their car, or they might be sitting anywhere doing it. It could be sitting on a train listening to it. And I think to sit looking at a screen, not everybody can do that all day. And you know, if you're doing something boring like the washing up and that, I often listen to the.
Do you find washing up boring? I love it. I love washing up.
Well, it's a bit boring, isn't it?
It's exciting. Oh, look, another fork. My sons say, they go, why don't we get a dishwasher? I said, you've got one, it's me. They said, no, we need to. I said, no. I mean, I don't see the point of dishwashers. If you've got one, sorry, it's completely lost on me. It takes as long to load it up as it does for me to get it done. What's the point of that? I just don't get it. And it's another bit of kit that can go wrong and all that kind of stuff, so... Anyway.
Oh, don't talk to me about kit going wrong. I've gone through I bought a small induction hob because we're supposed to save on electricity. I've had 2 that's gone up the spout within a week. I bought one from eBay, sent it back because it went up the spout, then got another one from another place, and that's gone up the spout. And they're not very good.
Well, maybe we should do an induction hob show. We need to do a show all about electrical appliances going wrong. That could be interesting. And I think
I could talk all about that.
I bet you could. Okay, well, I'll just mark that one down. We'll come back to that one a bit later.
Very boring show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, no, I think that really, no, seriously though, radio I found. I mean, I know that I'm shadow banned on YouTube. Definitely shadow banned. Because my audience figures are just going up and down, like I was going to say like a tarts clause, but that would be very rude, so I won't say that.
Good job.
But they're just going up and down all the time because, I mean, I did one the other week, and it's you'll have something like 40 or 50 people in chat, and then at the end of the show it says there's 6 people viewing it. And it goes up to a couple of hundred, then it drops down 100, and then it goes up again. How does it drop 100 people? You know, it's just ridiculous. It is shadow banning. I'm positive. You know?
Well, I think it's almost impossible to know, really. I mean, maybe I'm just going to go that Rumble's been honourable with us here because we've got 50, we had 60, 70 people on the Rumble feed. There's an awful lot listening on WBN. Which is just a fortuitous thing that happened for me. But there are an awful lot that listen on there because this show comes on after Alex Jones. You may have heard of him, Growly Man. And
I think it's not. It's the Nazis that did that. You know, there's dog poo in our street. Yeah, the Nazis have a plan for dog poo. Everything is the Nazis. You know,
it is. It is. Everything is the Nazis. And there are other people that always keep going back, well, it's the Nazis. And they go, oh, right, okay, fair enough. It's always, there's no point really going too far with it. No one's saying that everybody is purely good and this, that, and the other, but there's a little bit more to it than that, you know, and it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
And they keep banging on about this stuff. But the radio thing, I agree with you. I find, this is just me personally, I'm really interested in people that want to access the show through audio. Why? Because if they're doing it through audio, it means probably they're doing something else. And I like the idea that the listening base are people that are doing other things at the same time. I think this is a good thing. I think this is a great thing. The idea of just, I get these things all the time, you know, from loads of people, and it's no disrespect to them. I understand why they send them, and many of them would be brilliant. But I don't have time to sit down and watch a 2-hour video. I can't do it, right? I've got life to lead. There are things to be done, and I don't want to spend 2 hours. There's so many people communicating now. Of course, there's been an explosion. Everybody's I've heard Jeff Wren's droning on about it like an old fart. I'm becoming one of those, all these people have turned up and they're all streaming like mad. Well, yeah, they're going to do it, you know, and it's some of them are really, really good. But what we actually need, it seems to me, an aspect that works is the organising bit, which of course is dangerous because then when you get organised, because they go, there's people getting organised, we better infiltrate that and wreck that as well, you know. So it's a delicate kind of process, isn't it? I mean, patriotic alternative is, you know, very well organised, and yet they must have their, I don't know too much about them. I did a show with Mark Collett maybe 2 or 3 years ago, which was a lot of fun. We were talking about some books back then. I ought to probably try and make contact with him at some point and do something a little bit more serious-toothed. So, I mean, in one show a week, I've just tried to do it this way, but I think Jeff is great. Someone said, oh, Jeff's great. He is great. I listen to him loads. He's fantastic. I'm just saying that recently he's been banging on a bit about, in fact, we stuck Jeff's show on Radio Soapbox because although sometimes it's difficult to get
Jeff Wrench,
yeah, it's sometimes difficult to get it. It kind of the stream trips out, and I turn up in the morning and there's no recording of it, and this, that, and the other. So it's such a palaver. Loads of all these little fiddly bits. You see, there's actually tons to do. You don't realise how much there is to do, and the more of it gets done, the more sort of muscle we build up. I think that's why I like the idea of people doing things, Eric, because then we look at one another and go, we are people that do. It's a really simple thought. We're not people that just sit and talk. I mean, I do a lot of that, right? But, you know, there's a lot of doing to set it up, as you well know, with your show and things like this.
Yeah.
But we're also people that do, and we're interested in doing more of the better things to restore our people. I'm not against any other people, but I want the law back in our life. And the law says we live alone. That's what the law says, because it's a law. It's not something, these men have turned, we can choose to have it any way we like. No, you can't. I mean, you can, but then lots of people die pointlessly, stupidly, just so that you can feed your stupid ideas about how this is also. But I don't know what's up with them. There again, I don't know what's up with me either at times. A bit confusing.
Well, that's right. But I'll tell you what I find, and I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong, it's very nice. But what we do find is you get inundated with emails. People sort of, and I don't mind, but you sometimes feel swamped by it. And you don't want to be rude and ignore people, because it's the people that make your show. So it's but people are saying, "Oh, we watch this, watch it." I could spend all day watching videos, but I've got things to do, and I'm more of I like to be outdoors. I don't like sitting indoors, and I watch more videos in the winter than I do in the summer, because obviously it's a cold time. But that is the problem. I mean, I guess you get inundated with emails and things like that.
Yeah, well, I get sort of pestiferous messages and this, that, and the other. I don't really know these people, and I've generally tried to respond to everything that I could, but I'm actually, my life's changed so much with the home situation that I just can't do it. And I hate it, really. It's a point of much frustration. I probably would try and spend as much time as I could, but that's why this is possibly better. I mean, this is a good interaction space. Somebody wrote earlier that the chat here on Rumble is way better than the Telegram group, which it is. I mean, Telegram's there. I've set up this Telegram group for the show, but it's not really policed much or anything like that. It's not huge. It doesn't need to be. You can get swamped there as well, but this is kind of a bit more intimate with the chat. I need to try and find a way to get. I actually like the format. It's taken me several months to get used to it. Because I'm very old-fashioned. No, it just has. I didn't know quite how to sort of, screw the whole thing together. But as the technicals have come together a little bit better with each passing show, it gets to be more fun. I'm really, it was more sort of tricky to start off with for all sorts of reasons. I felt a bit more stilted. Now, it's beginning to flow a bit better. Getting you coming on here laughing like a drain is also great, and having a good time. Yeah, I think we need to send out a message that we can still have a good time whilst they're, sawing our legs off or whatever they're doing. I know it's a challenge, but...
Well, that's right. But there are some guests that you have that are what I call crowd pullers. Like, for instance, if I have John Hamer on, the author, my audience almost doubles. And there are some people, I think that Dennis Wise on your show, I bet your audience goes through the roof when he's on there.
Well, I think it's pretty much the same for just me and my Rumble effort. I mean, it's definitely bigger, and I'm looking. I mean, Dennis was on a few weeks ago and in a really great space, energy-wise. So, I want him back, and I think I'd love to do more shows, but it's just organising them. I would like to do more shows because getting behind the mic and putting out good stuff and throwing a few songs out, it's really enjoyable. Actually, it gives me, it is at this end. I don't know. I'm assuming it's reasonably enjoyable for the listeners.
Oh, it's very. I thoroughly enjoy it, and I think that that's what my show is lacking. But it's a different type of show, having musical breaks, and that's tempo, or what's it called now? It's a different, sorry, I'm not very up in music, where it's a different megahertz, is it, or something like that? As it goes out, it sounds better. But, that nicely, it breaks it up. But the thing is, with guests, is you do have to be careful sometimes, because Dennis, he's microphone friendly. He's not going to say anything that's going to get you into trouble, and it's so easy to get into trouble by saying the most innocent things nowadays. And we shouldn't be like that. We should be able to say whatever we want, and if it causes offence to somebody, tough.
Well, I think we still can. I still think we can say the right things. But in the end, it's not even a communications thing now. What's really occurring is that irrespective of however intelligent or lack of it or decent we may be, we're dealing with bullies. We're just being bullied. Yes. It's as simple as that. We are supposed to obey what they say. They don't have to obey anything. That's not on. That runs counter to the Anglo-Saxon principle of justice. And all we're really interested in, I would suggest, is justice. That's what we're after. We're after justice being seen, because from that, we get freedom. Just because you'll lose your freedom fast if there's no justice and the law's being abused. And we have to say, you only have to look at what's happened to Sam Melia as a case in point. Do we have a lawful system in this nation? I'm hard pressed to say yes. Right. And no doubt, there may be still good people in it, but the overall impact of the way that they conduct themselves is very, very bad, as if Dickensian times never ended. And to some degree, they haven't. It's an attitudinal thing. We are viewed as scum by these people. How do I know that? Because by their fruits shall ye know them. Just look at what they do. I'm not bothered what they say. Just look at what they do, don't you? So, but... I agree with you on the radio thing and the audio thing. So if we can build up a sort of ball of energy, a sort of head of steam, whatever you want to call it, with this sort of thing, and there are other good talents out there. I just thought if they were all in one kind of space on a schedule, they might also it's that the sum of the parts, blah 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 blah. Who knows? And maybe it won't go at all. In which case, everybody just sticks to doing their own shows, and that's no bad thing either. But we'll give it a go. I'm under no pressure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But
no,
what I was
right.
saying is my grandfather used to say to me, because he was a Labour Party supporter, and he used to serve soup during the general strike. The Jarrow marches. That was it. And that's going back to the 30s. And he noticed the Labour Party being infiltrated in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm hearing myself. And
it's okay, you're
what
not
happened,
now. Yeah.
He used to say to me, and this was when I was a kid, watch out for the infiltrators. Always watch out for the infiltrators. I wondered, what the hell is he on about? And it wasn't until I was much older I understood what he was trying to tell me. And that is the problem. These so-called stand in the park, those groups, they've been infiltrated very big time. And now they don't have to have people physically infiltrating. They're very clever the way they push out controlled opposition. And all they do is sit around moaning and groaning and get depressed. They don't really do anything. They just get depressed. And this is the problem. They've got people into that depressed state, and I would like to get them out of it. And this is why I think laughter gets them out of it. And I mean, you look how successful the Yellow Vests were. Why? Because they didn't have a leader. It's very difficult to infiltrate them. Now they have been infiltrated now, and they've been destroyed from within. And that's what happens. So this is what we've got to be careful of being infiltrated and destroyed from within, because you'd be surprised. It only takes one, a bad apple. That's it. So, but you've been on this earth a fair time, the same as me. I think I'm telling Ray to suck boiled eggs there, because I'm pretty sure you're well.
Yeah, I am. But it's good. It's good to still, it's good for us to keep repeating these things. I think it really is, because it's the core things that are out of whack that have got to be addressed. It's the engineering problem at the root. As I've said before with this thing, we've got this political machine which is bought and paid for by another group. And everything it talks about is completely 10th rate and of 10th level importance. They would have you believe that it's very important. We're going to war with this. No. Sort out the bank. Can you do that? You're my representative, right? You say you're my representative. You say that this is a nation, a tribe of people of the same race with a shared received history, culture, and language. Well, we're of the same race. So you are saying that you want to serve me by being a politician. So do it. Fix the bank. And we don't need to fix it. We've got to fix that. I know I bang on about it, but I can't stop banging on about it because no one's come up with anything to deflect me away from it. That's got to be changed. All the other things that are bent out of whack, the law is bent out of whack. Their systems of managing law is bent out of whack. But the reason why it perpetuates is that all those people running those systems get paid at the end of the month, and we don't. And we've got how we do this, I don't know. Like we said, historically, it's such a difficult thing. Nations that have been able to break away only were able to do it for a short period of time, because the money power threatens all the other nations under its control, that it will ruin them if they don't attack this other nation, so they do it. It's such an entrenched disease. It really is, and it's crept through everything to the point now where most of the institutions that we're supposed to respect are all riddled with this mad goal of making money. It's when you step back, it really is mad. We don't live this good life because of the money system. We live if whatever's good in this life from an engineering and point of view is because intelligent, creative men and women designed and built these things and said, look, I've done this thing called a plow. Oh, man. Yeah, we're going to be able to get an awful lot more potatoes done. Fantastic. Years ago, I've just invented a track. Whatever it is, right? These are the things that have added immeasurably. And yet that vulture class, the money power, has managed to control everything through what is effectively a bogus. It's got nothing to do with real wealth. And that's why the economic reporting leaves me kind of disinterested all the time. Silver's going up in price. No, it isn't. Gold's going up in price. It is not. It never has. An ounce of gold is an ounce of gold, and it always has been. What we're talking about is the man-made fiat systems that measure against it. So we all get sucked into it. I'm not saying that we can live without money, but we have to find a way of living without this sort of money, because I think it's we've been turned into drug addicts. The drug is money, and you need more of it next year to get the same high. And they're drug pushers.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
They're like drug pushers. They go, yeah, we've got this type of money, and we're in charge of the supply system, and we're always going to supply it. And we've got you all addicted to it, and you don't know because we don't use that sort of language. But it's no difference. And then people come off the money and they get withdrawal symptoms. They go, I need money. Of course you do. I accept all that. It's completely true. We can't just go cold turkey on money. You'll probably die on it, right? But then every attempt to actually, come up with a healthy cure for it is attacked by this very force that finds it very easy to persuade other people in their system to do it in because they'll get more money for it. So you're going, this is really, what's that old picture of, heaven and hell with the long knives and forks? And in hell,
I know the one.
You know the one, right? So they're all at a meal out there, and the knives and forks are all 6 feet long or something, and the table's 6 feet wide. And in hell, everybody's trying to feed themselves. And of course, they can't get their mouth on the food because it's 6 feet away. But in heaven, everybody's helping one another. And I know that seems really simplistic, which of course it is, but that's the essence of it. And what I suspect you and I and others warm to, what we warm to is the idea of that. We've got to get that's what we want, because we, as a race, operating under our own steam without interference, which is the big challenge, we will revert back to that sort of behavior very quickly. It's in us. It's in our blood to behave like that. We want to behave like that. We want to be around people that behave like that, because that's where our joy comes from. And we can make a great contribution to other races and people if they wanted it. If they want, we can't just go and impose a contribution. Right, it's like, I'm from the government. We're from this other country. We're here to help. I don't think I invited you in. No, we're here to help. We're helping you, no matter whether you like it or not. This is help. We're calling it help. What, bombing our cities? Yeah, it's going to help you. Yeah, it really is, It's all that. Without consent, you've got warfare. And that's why we've got warfare against us. We've not consented to any of this. I didn't consent to a usury money system. Sorry. Don't agree with it. It's wrong. I don't consent to the idea that the people that own the Bank of England are unknown to the British public as a whole. I don't consent to that. Well, it's just flippant what I'm saying, but it's a start,
About, 10 years ago, plus, when there was a general election, there was excuse my language, a hairy-ass politician wandering around with his rosette. He knocked at my door, I opened it, and I said, what is your party going to do about eliminating usury? And he said, I don't talk to racists and run off. But what's that got to do with race?
That's brilliant. That's so good. This is the caliber of individual that we've got to deal with.
Don't talk to racists. It's nothing to do with race.
They won't talk to me. I think I'm marked down. They've been coming here for years. The last time we had a Labour candidate, she came round. They haven't got a cat in hell's chance where I live. The people here are on Conservative autopilot for 10,000 years. It's just...
it's just Hertfordshire. Yeah, same here. I mean, it's blue rings. If a chimpanzee put up for the Conservative Party, it'd get in.
Absolutely.
Well, in fact, a chimpanzee does put up for the Conservative Party.
The chimpanzee. Gosh, I really like the idea of monkeys. I think political monkeys would be great. Yeah, I'm often talking about monkeys because I want to find a troop of gardening monkeys to look after my garden. I've got this whole idea that I find, and I don't know if these sorts of monkeys exist, Eric. They probably don't, except in my sad, tragic imagination. But I want a troop of monkeys. They're all incredibly articulate and probably have waistcoats and pocket watches and things like that. They're actually slightly smarter than I am, but humour me.
Like the apes.
Yeah, they humour me. They go, oh, here comes the human, right? And all that. But I say, look, you can live in the garden, do what you like, as long as you look after it. And we're all quite happy, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm sad, aren't I?
Yeah.
Nice little comment here.
Yeah.
We were talking about doing things. Aunt Sally's having a bath. I hope that's all going really rather well, and you're getting very, very clean, Aunt Sally. I learn all these things from the listeners as the show goes on. It's brilliant, isn't it? And reconciliation rights. I listened to the first hour and 45 minutes while riding the tractor. Very good. Fantastic. So maybe, I'm assuming that's a probably overseas listener, possibly in America where there's still some sunlight. Who knows? Maybe it's evening tractoring. I don't know. Here in jolly old England, because we are quite jolly, aren't we? I'm always jolly. We're always jolly and merry and all that kind of stuff. So,
it's like when I have the Bolat farmer on. Now, he's a farmer in Suffolk, and he's saying stock up with potatoes and stock up with carrots because there's none been planted in this country this year because it's been raining so much. So that's... and I think that we can do public information service like that because the public need to know these things because he's got first-hand knowledge because he's in the farming trade. So we know what's going on. And most of our food now comes from Africa. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I assumed it must come from somewhere because they were very keen on creating what they call interdependence. Right. You remember all this blather about interdependence in the 90s and stuff?
I remember that, yes.
And of course, this is just what they mean is, we want you all interdependent so we can control you all through supply chains. We don't need any.
Well, in 1980, this country was 80% self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Now it's down to 42%.
Okay, so
42.
that's good. So I'll put that in my fictitious political speech. We'll get a return back to that. I mean, one of the seriously, I mean, just as a sort of an open-ended comment, what would you actually? Maybe I should have you on for that. We don't talk war stuff. We talk about restoration of the country stuff. A short, maybe 40 minutes or something, and others as well. That sort of thing. You're king for a day. What would you actually do if you were in charge, apart from avoiding the bullets, and trying to get through the first couple of days without being poisoned to death?
Well,
farming would be at the top. What would you do, Eric? What would be the first thing that you would look at?
The first thing I would look at would be the financial system. I'd get that sorted. Once you've sorted that, then you sorted everything else. That's the thing, proper money. But the thing is, I'm totally against lynching people, but for a laugh, why not lynch these politicians using bungee cord over a sewage farm? That would be much more fun, wouldn't it? So you go boing, 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 But no, seriously, I think that the situation is that nothing is produced in this country anymore, and we've got to get impractical people. We've got to have a new generation of practical people. Because we've lost generations of practical people. Because it used to be a practical world. Now it's
I think we could recover really quick. I really do. I think it's this stuff runs deep with us. It runs deep with any people, who they are. It's not something to be sort of covered up with mainstream media wallpaper and we're all very, very different now. No, we're not. And of course, a lot of goofy people that we always had have been empowered. To use that dreadful word, it has become dreadful now because it's overused. But they have. You're getting these people who think the main, we have these bloody do-gooders. I'm going to save the world. Well, you're not invited to save it. And what we're going to do is we're going to invite all these people. They're all going to live here because we can look after them. No, we can't. We don't want to. In fact, what you're actually doing is you're basically setting up a situation where all of us, both them and us, are going to have a really, really difficult time of it. And you're creating an expectation that we can't fulfill. We're supposed to do this whilst what? Being taxed? These people they're a menace because they're trading on the idea that they love people more than you and I do. And this is all that people hear. They go, oh, yeah, well, they care so much. No, they don't.
They're
don't.
insane, and everything is for your safety. Have you noticed that? We
Yes.
are on Facebook. A fact checker has checked this for your safety.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm old enough to. If I'm saying a load of old rubbish, that's up to my listeners to say we're talking a load of old rubbish.
Yeah.
But why should a fact checker come along who's probably a spotty teenager? I mean, I did a show with Professor Moss, and we was talking about just trying to think of the word. The brain's going. Where you've got 30% of people that agree with the government, 40% that go with the flow. It's called mass formation.
All right.
I did
Yes.
a show on mass formation theory. It was taken down by YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And Professor Moss said, "Well, I want to know who's taking me down." Wrote to YouTube, never get an answer because you can't get through to them. But it's probably a spotty teenager that sat there with, he's probably got an attitude problem. What's this? But we didn't say anything about pharmaceutical industry, nothing about jabs, nothing about that. But what I think is we got too close to the truth. And the fact is that it's only 30% of people at any given time that can see through the BS. So we've got to.
But maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough, Eric.
Well,
maybe 30% is enough, to do it.
Well, yeah, but then you've got the 40% that go with the flow. The 30%, forget about them, they're dead from the neck upwards. But it's the 40%, that's what the government go for, the 40% who are in the middle.
Yeah.
That's the important ones, the ones that go with the flow.
Yeah.
And that's what they work on all the time. And it's very interesting, this mass formation theory, because you can see it all the time happening.
Yes.
First World War, people falling over themselves to go and volunteer. They called it war fever. Yes, that again is mass formation theory all the way through. But,
what was the guy? Was it Mackay? I think that's his surname, Charles Mackay. The Madness of Crowds. That's quite an old document, but it's about It's about the psychology of crowds.
Heard of that?
Yeah. And
it's quite amazing.
Well, human nature doesn't change. So we'll find examples of the same sort of idiotic behaviour 3,000 years ago in Greece or in Rome. It's always the same. It's not changed at all. The form has changed. The technology obviously has changed. The scale of the problem seems to have changed in terms of the number of human beings that are being desperately and negatively affected by these people, and yet it exists. I mean, sometimes in super enlightened moods, I think, well, maybe it's just meant to be like this and it's a counterbalancing system. But I'm personally just very interested, whether this will actually ever get satisfied during my lifetime or not, I don't know, in living in a place where the financial system is in its place, which is as a servant of the people and not as it currently is the other way around, which is where all the hideous madness comes from. And of course, you mentioned there about putting the financial system on a solid engineering footing. At least that's the way I would phrase it, because it needs engineers to run it, not economists. It's an engineering situation. Yes, and we've got all this computing power now, so we can if you applied those things to actually providing all the stuff to people, we could sort everything out. We could get the growth rate of the population just right. You could do it. All of these things would take a little bit of time, but you see, if you knew that we were going in that direction, today would become great. The reason why today is probably still highly unpleasant for most of us is that we know this thing's still going in the wrong direction. It's still going in the wrong direction. And it might be a long way to go if we turn it round, but we go, it's going in the right direction now. My God, we've got a long way to go. Yeah. Well, we're going there. We're finally going in the right direction. That's what we need. It seems to me.
Cultural genocide. Now, I often walk through Marks and Spencer's to go to Tesco's. I wouldn't buy anything in there because it's overpriced rubbish. But all the advertising models, pictures up on the walls, there's no Europeans at all. If you took a picture, you'd think you were in Africa or somewhere.
Yeah.
Why isn't it? Because that is the indigenous. I'm not being racial or anything like that. I've got nothing against anybody. But that Europe, the indigenous people of Europe are Europeans. So why haven't we got Europeans there? If I went to Africa, I'd expect to see Africans on advertising billboards. I wouldn't want to see Europeans there because I was in Africa. This is the way it should be. If you're Indian, you see Indians on the billboards. I just how we've sleepwalked into this has just amazed me. It really has. And it's been done a little bit at a time. This Colden Hove Kalergi plan. little bit at a time, drip, drip, drip. But I think I'm going a little bit too far by saying that, so I'll ease back a little bit.
No, you're okay. You're fine with that. I'll tell you what, this has been a great post-show, actually, Eric. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic.
Thanks.
And we've kind of got to know each other a little bit more, and everybody's been earwigging in, so it's wonderful. But I think we'll call it to a close. It's 11:10 nearly now.
It's getting late. Oh, by the way, what about for the political party, the Fockham Party, the Fockham Hall Party?
I'll see if I can... we can do that.
When I mention
maybe.
that word,
yeah.
People laugh, they grin, because it sounds rude, but it isn't.
No.
That's the thing, you see.
It is.
Look at our show.
It sounds rude, but it is.
Our show was called Fact Hunts. And there's pictures of Churchill, Stalin, and Roosevelt. I mean, it's not rude, it's Fact Hunts.
Yes.
I say that with a mouthful of nuts.
I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything rude about it at all, Eric. No. I don't know what people are going on about. It's about fact hunting. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah, it really is.
So I think that by playing with words, I love playing with words like that. But saying Fockham Hall Party, I mean, people they look up. I mean, one of the best advertising campaigns was French Connection UK, because when I first looked at it, I thought that's rude. It isn't, but it got my attention. That's the thing. Anyway, thanks for this. We've been on for over an hour.
No, we've been 3 hours. This has been a 3-hour show. This right, 8 to so. Yeah, so a 3-hour show is an absolute breeze when it goes like this. It really is, and I think they get breezier and breezier. And there's lots of other good voices to bring into a space like this. It's just a matter of organising and building up a head of steam, and to keep the sort of the conversation going. Anyway, we're one of many doing this, and that's a great thing. And hopefully there'll be more people doing it, and we'll be more organised, and we'll keep going. So I think we'll wrap it up for now. Just a quick shout out now. Yeah, brilliant. Watch out for radiosoapbox.com. If we can keep building it up, we might not be able to. It's okay, but I'll keep you posted through my Telegram group, and we might set a Telegram group up for that, although we've got so many groups everywhere. I don't know what to do, really. But we'll be back again. I'll be back again. Paul will be back again. Eric, probably not next week, but we'll have you back soon, Eric. And we'll be back next Thursday. We'll be back next Thursday. We'll talk anyway. I want to get you sorted out to get you out on Mondays, and we'll do a few technical things,
brilliant.
I think.
I'll put adverts for your show as well on my show. Don't worry.
That's cool.
I'll pop links on and things like that, because I think we've got to link to get attention. That's the thing, because links do work. They always do work. So.
They do work, and I think there's probably other ways of promoting these shows. I've thought that my last little comment. You see, I can't stop talking tonight. That promoting things locally might be very powerful. I've talked about parishes here before. There's 10 or 11,000 parishes in the UK on the footprint of the land, as it were. And I don't know how many people are in my parish where I am right now, but it's X thousand. And maybe I need to get to know all of them. And maybe there needs to be a radio station for that parish. Now, it could be the bulk of it, is just streamed in from all over the world. But once or twice a week, we have something that's really local and connected with what's going on here. I don't know, but local meetings are it. Politics should be local. The whole of the centralisation of power is where all the problems come from. The centralisation of the bank, of course, is the primary cause of all the problems, because it's got all the other agencies in its thrall: law, media, government, education. They're all sucked into that. And like you're fully aware, and many of the audience are here. We change that, you've now got a it'll not saying it'll be an unbelievable fight, really, with these maniacs, because they don't want a peaceful world for us. They want a world that they rule. It seems to me there may be something even more than that. I don't know, but we've working to find different ways to expand the audience could help, because the internet is one way, but there could be a better way.
But also the old-fashioned way, because you've probably never heard of the Fockham Hall Times. I actually do a magazine, the Fockham Hall Times.
Right.
Yes, it's. I haven't done it for a long time because I've been too busy. But it's actually on my website, Fockham Hall FockhamHallRadio.com. Now on there, Fockham Hall Times, what it is, it's satire, and I'm saying award-winning journalism. Do you know who gave me the award? I did, and I'm not a journalist, because you notice the smug what's in power, they're always giving themselves awards. So we give ourselves awards, and it's just satire all the way through. And I think we're missing out on satire a lot.
Well, what you're saying, but I agree with you. And I think all that jumped into my head as you were talking about that is that just like we've got lots of people setting up streams and lots of things like this, and this is good, what I'm yearning for is a kind of a coordinated thing. Now, I accept as well that it gets infiltrated. If we can find a way, what's that phrase? Leaderless resistance. We kind of need that for a period. We are trained, I guess, we're hardwired to look to the strong man or the gifted communicator or the intelligent or passionate or reasonable guy, somebody or gal, but primarily males, I suppose, traditionally, because we are, we're a patrilineal people, to basically stand up and fight for us. The problem is that we don't live in those old ages where someone like that could actually survive for a long time. You can't survive around here. They can poison you. The technology that they're willing to use to eliminate opponents is considerable. Now, maybe I'm just being wet and you just go, no, you don't know about that. I think we do know about that. I think we know about many things. We know that they've got all these methodologies.
John Smith is a typical example. He was done in to make way for Blair. And there is an actual gun that can give someone a heart attack.
Yes, he was.
It's actually patented.
Yeah.
And the other chap, I can't remember.
So let's suppose, this is a great point. Let's suppose John Smith was going to turn out to be that guy that had full of sense. He came across a very intelligent guy. I don't know a great deal about him, but who was actually of the old school, and you had a sense maybe that he had some integrity and they didn't have too many ties to the city and he was going to do things, right? No one could protect him. And this is what I've said. Even if we get this group of people, if you go into that arena and they become aware that you're actually planning to do things that will put them out of their comfort zone, big time, they're going to do you in because they've got the means of covering it up instantaneously and no one has got the energy. So it's a difficult problem. Something else has to be done. And I do think it's kind of an on-the-ground lack of consent. We become ungovernable, not by being nasty, but we just become ungovernable. And the best way, it seems to me, we have to, I know this gets preachy, but I don't see any other way through. We have to obey the laws of God because we're at our best when we do. Most people don't recognize it. They think it's because we're brilliant people. Well, we can be, but there's a lot of things to sort out, it seems to me, on that score, and so the law is it, because without it, we do become lost. And I think we're looking at a mature situation of decay because we've been drifting away from the law. And of course, we've allowed, unfortunately, ourselves to be attacked and infiltrated and taken over. And that began at the top. The bank, as soon as the bank sat here in 1694, the first level of people it began to infect was the aristocracy. So the natural leaders and thinkers of our people began to be sucked into that space. And now it's such a mature disease, unfortunately, it seems to me. But whatever, there's also miracles and strange things that happen. And sometimes the sun shines and sometimes whatever, so we have to keep pounding on.
Well, I'm optimistic because historically the unexpected normally happens.
Yes.
So I think something that nobody would ever dream of will happen, which will probably turn out to be for the good. It's amazing the amount of twists and turns in history that people just did not expect.
Yes.
So I think that this can't go on forever. These nutcases that are in power, they're having their own way now, but it's not going to last for long.
I agree with you.
It'll flip the other way.
I agree with you. And I think doing this, if you don't know what else to do, and sometimes I don't, right? And if anybody did, I guess they'd be doing it and we'd all be going, at last we know what we're supposed to do. But I think just doing this is a good use of time. It really is. It's a very good use of time. And I'm not trying to knock it at all. It's a very good use. And we're searching and asking questions, and that's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
I say to people, if you want to know, if you want to find a leader or someone to lead you, look in the mirror. Because government makes people weak. That's the problem. It makes people weak. And without government, and I'm not talking about people that say, there'll be riots in the street. No, there won't. Because we're very good at organising. I think it would be far better without government because civil servants run the country, not governments. And it's the usury scammers that actually rule the country.
Yes.
So once you deal with it from the top, we need a lean, mean civil service who are totally accountable. We do have to have administrators. That's the problem. We do have to, because that's a fact of life.
Well, it's
But
complex. There's a lot of us around.
Yeah.
Things are complicated in a degree that they were 600 or 700 years ago, and much more complicated. The technology has got to be managed and looked after, and we want to have it because it's improved the quality of our life on a physical level. We're all living longer, but we're all more cross about it. But you're right. Maybe, Eric, there's a way of putting together some kind of a communications campaign where the aim of transforming the bank, of making it serve the people, is done in such a way that many of the people that are currently holding that system in place give up on holding it. And they look at this and they go, we have to go this way. That's possibly part of it. The ones that are holding this system together the most have to, maybe in some quiet way, be shown that what they're doing is rubbish, and that there's a much more bountiful and wonderful life available to them and to all of us if they give this stuff up. Because I don't think, it's not, for me, it's not about owning lots of stuff. It's about owning it's about having an experience of being sort of in productive joy, as it were, with your people. Something that we all have from time to time, but we don't have enough of it. And we know it's available to us. I'm thinking of the Middle Ages. I quite like the idea of working 14 weeks a year and then skipping around in the barley fields for the rest of it. Anyway, on that happy pastoral note,
you go.
On that happy pastoral, we'll close the show out. So I'm going to throw the switch in a few moments' time. Thanks everyone for tuning in for so long. Goodly audience in Rumble for all this time. It's been brilliant, actually. I've really enjoyed it, Eric. As I said, we'll have you back again soon. I don't know what we're going to do next week.
Thank you.
I'll probably get you in if you're around for the election night special, which will be on the 4th of July. I will try and get a big crew in, and we might extend the show or something, and we'll do the alternative election night special, and we can just sit around here laughing our socks off.
I won't say that Keir Starmer looks like the type of man to suck a fisherman's friend. Lozinger, of course. Would I? I won't mention that joke at all. So
and don't mention it on that night either, because it will all be a bit too embarrassed. Yeah, so that's fine.
That's right. Yes,
brilliant.
Yes.
Eric, wonderful. Keep well. I'll be in touch. And to everybody in Rumble, we're going now. I'm going to throw the switch. Been brilliant. Really enjoyed it. Catch you all next week. Yeah, fantastic, Eric. Keep well. And here's to those brave lads on D-Day, and we're still trying to find out what they fought for, but we're here to see it through to the bitter end, or to the jolly end, whatever it may be. So wonderful having you along for the ride. We'll be back again next week. Yeah, thanks, bye for now, everyone. Yeah, thanks, Eric. Bye now. Bye-bye.